What up? I'm Andreas. Welcome to SyncTank. Hey, David's with us. Good to see you, David. How are you?
Hey, how's it going? Good.
Hi. I'm Andreas. I'm a synchronist. Eddie's also. How are you doing? It's kind of like Sync Anonymous or Sync Anon would be kind of a thing. Zach joined. Thank you, Zach, for being back with your beautiful Zach back and all that. And then Mercury's Messenger, which is interesting, is retro. What's it called? Retro Station. Retro. I got it right.
Station,
I did it. Retro Station. Okay, so the way I look at it is like if you've ever watched Clerks and they've got like the video cassette store, you know what I mean? This is kind of like the real. That's what that's based on. It's based on Chris Myers.
Basically, Randall in real life, and Aleister Crowley had a baby.
And what's weird is like they started adding that into Clerks, like the third Clerks. They kind of get into that. They're like the Satanism gets in there. It's kind of interesting.
And he actually did a promo for us. Both of them did. So the training video is Jeff Anderson as Randall. That's at the top of the Instagram page. And Elias, the character who plays Elias, did a promo for us too. And he was at some weird like Burning Man thing when he sent it to me personally called Zozobra. And it was weird because on the commentary track, he's at Zozobra too. Weird.
Interesting. Yeah, so there's a lot of weird stuff. Oh, go ahead, Eddie.
Hold on. Chris, can you turn up your sound a little bit any way you can? It's a little low in the volume.
Hey, Eddie, I had my mic like turned too high up from listening to you on that point from a couple episodes ago, just so you know. No hard feelings, but you were like, I can't hear you. And I kept turning it up before the show, and then like I can't anyway, sorry. So I hope it's okay now for me. But
yeah, I think
is that a little better?
It might just be the quality of the phone or something like that also.
Is that any better at all?
It's about the same.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
We can hear you if you can pump it up.
It's just a little muffled for whatever reason. Another thing in the audio settings, if you turn off automatic mic control, that seems to help. Andreas had recommended that, and that did seem to help quite a bit.
Is that under mic?
Under audio.
I'm adjusting it for you. I think try talking for a bit. Hello.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it working now?
Talk some more.
Keep talking.
I think this is probably what we're gonna get.
Okay.
This is probably what we're gonna get from your microphone. But I do want to focus on some things I saw actually because Eddie posted something, and this was kind of this was the major F or L or whatever moment, depending on how you look at it. But war to end all wars, Switzerland may abandon centuries of neutrality to get this, sell arms to Ukraine after Swiss National Bank posts biggest loss in its 116-year history, 9/11, and shows interest in central bank digital currencies. What do you think about this? That we're headed towards the end of Swiss neutrality, which was already since 2000. They have a new constitution.
Yeah. Well, I just posted this like a half an hour ago, so I didn't really have time to read everything. But
this is legit. I was looking into this, and it's actually, they've already been doing it secretly, obviously. Like Ukrainian national, there's corporations that are run by people that are in several countries at once, right? And then they go to Switzerland. Switzerland's a place for a lot of different internationalist trading and military trading. And also they'll maybe take a proxy country, trade in Jordan at IDEX or trade in Corsica, right? As we talked with Leo Zagami about. So there's a number of examples where Switzerland's already been selling weapons, but now they're saying, hey, as a state, why would we ever stop? Why can't we just do this all the time? And they're going to literally just engage in Swiss-backed military. And isn't the Swiss-backed the Swiss military is some of the best in the world, right?
Well, they guard the Pope, the Swiss guard, they guard the Vatican, and some of they guard the bank wallet too. So,
you won't be able to say you're feeling very Switzerland on any topic anymore and have it mean the same thing, and that's right. My biggest loss for me.
I feel that
it's all World Economic Forum stuff. That's all it is. When you boil it down.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If anybody's going to wage the Great Reset, it will start from Switzerland. Switzerland is going to do the Great Reset. Everything. It controls. It's the central bank of all central banks.
It's interesting though because you've got this organization built upon the idea that they're not going to do that, but they also own the blue helmets in a sense. Because with the blue, we were talking about this earlier. The idea that the United Nations, let's try that. United Nations.
Hey, that's the helmet I wear. It's like, no, I'm just playing.
If they can't get money from your state, like India or China, will send them people. African states will send them people. And don't listen to me calling countries states, right? but that's what they've taught me to do.
Oh, come
honestly.
on, man. The blue hats are just peacekeepers, man. That's their whole role, man. These are anti-war soldiers, you know. They're just there to make sure no one else fights, you know.
I mean,
just don't roam the streets of the U.S. That'd be
I hope you hear the sarcasm in that. But, yeah.
We're headed towards a thing where they start to conscript people, literally like the Roman Empire did. Your state will be forced to pay taxes in people.
Do you guys remember who was our liaison for the UN in the early 70s? And he was supposed to be bipartisan.
Kissinger or what? Which one? No.
Bush won.
Oh,
really?
Well, what, before he was CIA director?
When he was CIA.
He was our ambassador. He was our ambassador. Well, he was CIA, then he was our ambassador, and then he was, then all that stuff.
I wouldn't have thought of that as liaison, but I guess you have a point.
Well, he said in the interviews that back then he said he was bipartisan. He didn't even identify as Republican or Democrat in the early 70s.
Yeah, because he's uniparty.
Well, speaking of which, just try to add this is that his boss, Ronald Reagan, at UN at the 42nd General Assembly, that's when he talked about the alien invasion scenario. They'll talk about in case if the world cannot stop warring, the warring factions cannot stop killing each other, we'll have to send in the aliens to stop the war. So the big long, 30-minute speech he gave. So
I mean, it does seem like also there was this kind of happening where the Church of England is going to drop the pronouns, which honestly, I think the idea of God as a single parent who writes books is kind of crazy. Anyway, we should probably move away from the.
According from the Bible itself, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
that was a liberty that was taken when the Bible was canonized. That in the translation, that they didn't. I mean, the word is a family.
Creator of the cosmos and family.
Real quick, you guys know on my best days I'm a Gnostic. Aleister Crowley said that the biggest conspiracy there ever was that God, and I'm sure you could attest to this because you know a little Hebrew, I assume. In Hebrew, God actually doesn't really translate into male or female. It's kind of above all that, so it doesn't even make sense. So the he stuff, he said, was all bullshit. And he wasn't saying it from like that point of view. He was just saying it's so above everything that we are that it wouldn't identify as jack crap.
Right. It's the idea of like, that the unfertilized ovum it doesn't belong to either sex, and it's like kind of an unknown determinant factor that ends up deciding that. And so in the same way in Genesis, you have man, the Adam is created male and female, and then it's later that you have this divide, but this divide is also like a continuum. So like that's where I really I think everything gets so twisted when it comes to like I was just talking about this on Twitter. It drives me nuts. So and I think I probably pissed some people off. But there's this whole thing when people say like non-binary, and
it's not a binary
I'm like, well, the thing is, we're not fucking computers, right? I mean, we don't work the same way.
I'm hexadecimal. That's the way.
Right, but this is the thing: is that it becomes this weird paradox because you have the same people who are claiming to be non-binary are often pushing very binary ideologies or very very binary ideas about what the self is, and so it comes through the back door repeatedly. And so I'm like, if it was
nice pun.
If it was for real though. And so it's like this weird thing where it's like, nature actually exists as what we see as organic life in nature contains this continuum, and it's mutually interdependent, the opposites, but the opposites themselves inherently are not in opposition. So the way I always put it is we project duality on top of that polarity. And so when people are claiming to be non-binary, but then they're relating to that through a dualistic lens, it doesn't matter what they want to call themselves. They're still ascribing.
You're still categorizing yourself somewhere. It's all that bullshit.
This is why Eckhart Tolle is so fucking canceled. Because if you actually follow through with Eckhart Tolle's basic spiritual teachings, they definitely they totally conflict with the culture war ideologies in terms of identity. Because in the question of what is ego in his terms, it's identification with thought form. So if you're saying this thought form that I have, I need to adapt my body to meet this thought form, that's the antithesis of that spirituality in certain ways. And it's also non-acceptance. So you have the same people saying accept people for their weight or whatever it is, will then say I was born in the wrong body,
Yeah, maybe you should write a book like Magic and Theory and Practice, because if you ever read Magic and Theory and Practice, some of the letters at the beginning that Crowley was getting, it was like one woman, she was Christian, and she was asking about karma, and he tried to explain to her. He said, look, you can't believe in karma and also believe that you're a Christian.
Wait, isn't that Magic Without Tears you're referencing?
Is it Magic Without Tears? I'm sorry, I've read all the books, man. I gotta get them all. It's been a while.
Oh, totally. But they blend together.
But you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people that mishmash stuff together that doesn't really go together. So there's that, just in general in life, in philosophy and religion.
Someone else has already.
Let me ask you two questions real quick. I'm sorry. I'm not going to try to Jupiterian man you guys, which is like where Mercury says a bunch of shit, and then you guys.
I want
to
say that more often. I'm not trying to Jupiterian man you guys. You know, that's
I'm drinking coffee. Real quick.
So I'll just jump in real quick. A lot of the pronouns, a lot of the relating to people in the way that they want to be related to, it's a utilitarian thing. So like much like we saw with Magog, not being a Democrat or a Republican. I'm talking about Bush, of course, or maybe it was Gog.
Magog, yeah.
Gog and Magog. Gog was
his good old
remember that building too? Remember the building they had that they had the sorry.
It showed George Bush with the
real quick before we get off the subject. I just wanted to ask a question. So I'm pretty sure that in Hebrew, is it the word shen that is creation?
So are you thinking like formation is like Yetzirah, like Sefer Yetzirah? The word Shem is name. The Shin is a letter.
Yeah, the Aleph, Mem, and Shin, and then there's Shem, which is different than.
Well, I just remember in the creation, when I was translating Hebrew to Greek to English, Crowley's suggestion in one of his books, it wound up basically the creation, the beginning wound up actually translating into a sexual fire. And the same thing with Jesus Christ. He was created in a sexual fire. The world, a world was created in a sexual fire. And I always thought that was interesting. And then real quick, when I was speaking with a Jewish fellow one time, and he was explaining to me his point of view on creation and God. And he said it was like, it's like rest and activity, I guess, or something, for lack of better terms. But God was like this, and he breathed. He made a breath like this.
Totally. And
then he went back, and then he made a bigger breath. And it was kind of like how you have to rest, and then you would have something exciting, but then you have to rest.
Right. I'm pretty sure. I know why.
Idea.
I know why they said that. I know why they said that. Man. They said that because Bereshit has. Am I too loud? I'm scooting in. Do I need to turn down? Okay.
Hey David, okay. I just want to remind this time. Remember that one time a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned in the elevator, the fire button in case of emergency. The fire button, the fire emergency.
Yeah.
It has that. It has Shim. I mean, totally. The fire logo. If you look at the elevator, the fire button. Totally. It's Shim, and now Chris said it is the creation through fire, right?
Right. So Chris, I think what you're referring to is that Bereshit has the shin in there. I'm pretty sure. So that's the sh of Bereshit, and so that's Genesis. And then Yeshua, if you were to spell it in Hebrew, you'd get Yud Hey Shin Vav Hey. So it's tetragrammaton with a shin in the center, and shin is fire. So it's one of the three mother letters, as you know. So Aleph is air, and Mem is water, and Shin is the fire. And so yes, there's something to the fire of creation in Bereshit. Yeah.
So basically, is this not evil? Is my point. So what do we tell people when someone says, "Hey, they're making God not a man anymore"? Like, good. How do you explain?
Oh yeah, let's get past that whole thing.
Yeah. But then the other question is, I think in Mercury, you just brought this up, Chris, the idea that Jesus was actually, because sometimes they're saying, what if they were, and I haven't seen it here, as Jesus as androgynous, but let's be real.
No.
Well, what's the Da Vinci or Michelangelo Jesus picture? I mean, a lot of the mystery schools did present Christ as androgynous. I mean,
that's true.
I mean,
the biggest problem I've ever had with the mythos of Christ, which I still wear crosses on my hand. The biggest problem I've always had with people's perception of him or the idea of the mythos, whether you believe it is real or not, is that one, he was a socialist, which Crowley addresses in Crowley on Christ, which I think is Liber 888. It's a response to somebody's claims that he is a socialist, and he kind of explains the coin idea, like whose coin is this, when they corner him, and he says it's Julius, that you pay him his taxes. But also the idea that he hung around, sinners and all this kind of stuff, which he was around people to save them in the mythos of Christ. He was not around them because, it was all good, I guess, is the easiest way to put it in layman's terms.
I've heard that song, Jesus was a communist. Jesus was a communist! That was pretty good. But the point is Tutankhamun pictures look like androgynous, and so Jesus pictures at that point in history start to look androgynous. Is there a connection? Are we saying that Yeshua isn't Jesus and Jesus is this kind of Tutankhamun-like recreation? Or was this about, because some people say Jesus was Bigfoot, maybe Jesus was androgynous. I don't know. What am I
This is super stinky because we just had the Grammys and Madonna, correct me if I'm wrong, but that might have been Genesis P. Origin.
Oh my God, 2022. Yeah, I don't know what.
She
actually
dressed up like that.
Yeah, look at Genesis P. Origin. Look at like late stage Genesis P. Origin.
Oh wow. I see your point. Yeah, that's true. But I was thinking if you take human growth hormone and you keep cutting your nose down, you probably end up like this. And also just the Buddha ear is interesting.
Wasn't Genesis P. Ulrich, he was trying to look like his late wife there towards the end of her life.
Oh yeah, no, the Androgyny. They were trying to look like each other. So even after Jackie, they continue to look more like them.
I'm sorry, Andrea, can you pull up the picture of that statue they just erected in New York? It's a statue in memory of Ruth Ginsburg. The abortion statue. They said.
Oh my God, you're kidding me!
That's Madonna right there. Look at her hair. It's the same.
This is really. I didn't even see this one yet. I didn't see.
Looks like ram horns to me.
I saw this from Chris Knowles, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Is that where you caught it, Eddie? Not that it matters, but
I thought of that, but then I saw his post, and he was trying to say that it's like it's the Baphomet.
I just want to clear up before we continue, and then I'll shut up for a while. What was the skinning the cat thing about me last week?
So it was my first. It was
25 years.
This was.
Hold your thought. I think this is a good time to introduce ourselves because Chris, we are all kind of like graduates of the old Facebook group of Kitchen Sink, or some of us. I don't know, Andreas, if you were in it.
I was definitely in Kitchen Sink. Yeah.
So Chris is like one of the Chris's stories in the Sink book, published by Alan in
page 127.
Oh yeah, let me pull up the book. You got the book there. Pull it up. Show us.
Oh yeah.
Show us
Page 127, the magic of synchronicity, Mercury's messenger.
The actual Sync book, yeah. So
I have the second book. So Chris, before you jump on and attack David, but it's funny. It feels like you guys know each other. There's a history there going on. So David was trying to interpret something. So we're all a bunch of old Kitchen Sink. I opened up Synchronous because Kitchen Sink tanked. Everybody's looking for a new home.
There's a story there that you don't know, Eddie, but and that's fine. But like,
I get Lucifered out of everything. I always get kicked out of everything, so I just don't join anything anymore.
Well, I think we're getting older now, kinder, older, wiser, and gentler.
So let me explain. So the first time I ever went on 42 minutes which was like Talk Shoe. So we sign in through that and it gets recorded, whatever. And there's like the private chat. And so after the show was over, the private chat opened up and I saw that you could see the timeline of like throughout the conversation that there was a detailed explanation on like this ritual to make a wish. So at the end it was like make a wish, but it involved skinning a cat, boiling a cat, like all of these stages, and it was very detailed. And there was a name attached to it, and I could have sworn the name was you. And if I'm wrong, I sincerely apologize.
Yeah, absolutely not. No way.
There was not very many
God's
people that were involved in the talk show.
I actually have another friend named Chris Myers too, which is funny.
I never went on talks shoe unless I was a guest, which was 2 times. I did 42.
It did not say Chris Myers. Everybody had handles.
Yeah, it was, but you have to understand, I have a lot of people that used to follow me around that were despised Aleister Crowley. And there was that one guy, Dennis, since like 2008 or 9, he was following all my blogs and he was going, give up the ghost and all this. So I attracted all those people because of my Aleister Crowley stuff. So people were trying to besmirch my character. And I also get that because I'm a misanthrope, I get that, like, you know, oh, he's evil kind of shit stuff. Because of
and simultaneously, I remember in Secret Sun and in Kitchen Sink, there was a guy involved with doing the anti-Trump spell. And the people in Secret Sun are Synchronicity people that were some of them are famous, and some of them are actually just involved. They're journalists or something. And so they're like, ha, 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 in The Guardian or in HuffPost or whatever. There's this Trump ritual that they're doing. Ha, ha, ha. Here's what it is. And then they'd put it in the newspaper so people knew how to join in the Trump ritual. And some of the rituals that guy was involved with involved dog sacrifices, which got into the I was like terrified and shocked when I found out that there was literally people involved with the SPCA that were rounding up people's dogs. They were finding people that, you know, were NRA guys or people that had, you know, lived alone. And they come and say, hey, your dog's not taken care of. Kidnap the dog, and then they would do, you know, SPCA and PETA kill dogs more than they clone them. And
is this what they're referencing him below the Silver Lake or whatever, beneath the Silver Lake?
Well,
I mean, the dog is like such a noble, decent animal. I mean, I'm not like, I mean, if it's between a human and a dog, usually, like the dog is pretty much doing what it's told and taught, and is a pretty decent person. Is scared if it's been bad, and I feel like that's why they're taking something innocent. You know, it's like
is this part of the you know, Lana? You know, remember Lana Del Rey? She hated Trump so bad. She was like,
yeah,
she organized that, which is against Trump, right?
Right, yeah. But it was a dude. It was like a 50-year-old dude who was into, you know, the like Secret Sun. He likes the Cocteau Twins and all that stuff. Like people. It's kind of like how Randy is Lord in South Park. Like a lot of these girls that are reading these witch things, like there's a hierarchy of these people that are witches, and they kind of look normal. You know, I found that sometimes they'll try to stick out a little bit. You'll see a dude who always wears a black cowboy hat or something like that, and that's his way of, even though he works still.
I always thought it was funny. I don't know if you guys ever read the Satanic Witch
Dave
or
Filoni,
the Anton LaVey book that's for women. It's just pretty funny. I mean, it's just got stuff like how to bat your eyelashes and stuff. But I ran into this girl one time, and she claimed to be a Satanist, or a Luciferian rather. And she had the sigil of Lucifer, you know, the one that goes like this, you know, not the Satan one with the figure 8 or the
Google Infinity Play or whatever.
The sulfur,
yeah,
right.
But the one with the, you know, the Lucifer sigil.
Yeah,
and she had it tattooed on her, and you know, I'm an outerhead member of the OTO, all this kind of stuff, more like a Robert Anton Wilson type when it comes to all that. I've talked to 33rd degree Masons before. I have a few Scottish Rite people. I taught Blue Lodge Masons the Kabbalah, and they went up like 2 degrees after I taught them, which is really good for a Blue Lodge member, which is like homeschooling, I guess. But my point was, I tried to tell her, I said, well, that's not necessarily Lucifer's sigil, and this is like high up stuff. And it actually means city of pyramids. If you really go high up in certain orders, that's what they call it. It's not Lucifer's sigil. It is city of pyramids. And it kind of reminiscent of the Crowley, what was that little ritual he did for Chronozon in Cairo or whatever. I think that's mentioned, the city of pyramids. I think it's in Israel Regardie's book, The Eye in the Triangle. But she just refused to think that was a thing, and a lot of
she's got a fucking tattoo, man.
Yeah, and the thing is, Anton LaVey is such a deviation from. It's like there's a veil there, actually installed, kind of like Scientology, right in the church, which is the entire point of the Church of Satan, is to present to the public a publicly acceptable view. So it's not necessarily in order to turn the Satanists into higher magicians or anything. In fact, you could be an atheist. A lot of time it's fine. That's the main kind of person that they grab, really. Whereas not Thelema or whatever.
There's a reason why Michael Aquino left the church. He was like, he left in the furious about the church is not taking things seriously.
Which is ironic considering his haircut. Like, he's like, you guys look like the Munsters. Like, what even are you?
Well, he was going bald, so that might have been the excuse for that.
Yeah, he's like, I am not going to look like that guy. That is not my goal.
But I guess my point in general was that you like, even I used to read tarot for I used to do it for free, and then I started charging money because I was tired of explaining stuff. But I was doing it at a shop, and I was doing it on Periscope and making some pretty good money. And I was doing birth charts and all this stuff. And it was so sad because almost every single person, I had to retrain their whole thought process on just the beginning, the general stuff, because people read these little quips about, Aquarius, this, that, and the other. And I have to explain to them, I said, this is not telling you who you are or who you're not. And it's not something you should disagree or agree with. It's telling you the path of least resistance. It's like if you were in a forest and you're walking through the woods and you're getting all these thorn bushes stuck in you and all this stuff. And then there's this path there that somebody's showing you through divination or your birth chart. And they're saying, this is how the logos work. And this is where you're at in the logos and the as above, so below scheme of things. And what you should do for the path of least resistance to follow your bliss or whatever is take this path that the universe has already carved out for you. And that's the basic thing you have to explain to them, much less everything else. You know what I mean? It got so tiresome. I mean, I'd be on the phone with people for 2 hours off a one-card reading.
Totally.
Dude,
every time I give it...
Sorry, I'm done.
Every time I do a reading for someone, I have to like qualify. I don't do fortune telling, and like I just see tarot as offering perspective.
I was going to say though, Anton LaVey's book isn't the only one. I was thinking of George Bernard Shaw, who's got The Intelligent Woman's Guide to Socialism, Capitalism, Sovietism, and Fascism. This is one of my favorite books, actually. It has like really great quotes about why lighthouses exist. But it's funny because he invents languages and his body's stuffed like an embalmed cockroach that you can see to this day in the Utilitarian Museum. But, he wrote books for women, intelligent women, of course. I mean,
hey,
you guys know Unanday? Are you guys familiar with him from Think Book 2?
Maybe. Mm-hmm. What was his chapter?
Old magician. Used to be a chaos magician.
What was his chapter? What was,
he's in Think Book 2. He's old gay magician, looks like a wizard.
Unanday?
Unanday. His grandmother is the Good Witch from Wizard of Oz, but he's my daughter's godfather. Daughter.
He's in the chat. Actually, I saw him popping up. He's
cool. Hello. He sent me a book one time because we used to exchange books all the time. I would send him Discordian stuff and whatnot, and he sent me a Voodoo book written by this gay guy or bisexual guy. And it had a ritual in it to control somebody. And the whole thing in it was like, basically you got to have sex with them to control them. So I just think some of this
like
stuff,
tantric magic and some of the vampirism and Tinder and everything.
Dude, but that's all the upper levels of the OTO. That's their whole focus.
Thelema is a lot about
that's
this,
like
man.
admitted too. That's not even like a speculative thing, man.
Well, I mean, there was a documentary I was watching, and people were in Italy looking for Aleister Crowley's hideout when he was there, and they were trying to find evidence of this some kind of sexual sacrifice that going on.
Dude, I don't know about this. It's eyes wide shut, man. Like that's not totally fiction. I'm sorry, but
let's harp on.
Understand about Crowley too. There's that whole thing Michael Tsarion gets into, which I love. It's still up on YouTube. It's about a 3-minute clip where he tries to explain to the guy that when he's talking about sacrifice in magic and theory and practice, he had a black occult magician following him. And he was basically tongue-in-cheek saying a lot of things to throw them off and to give them what they wanted. But he was talking about semen. He wasn't talking about actually sacrificing children. And then
it was like that scene with Mel Gibson in the Taxi Conspiracy.
It was easier to talk about like sacrificing children during that day and time than to talk about sex. It was like more like
I don't
taboo. So it was like a tongue-in-cheek thing, and that like that was the way like he chose to talk about
I don't think that was the reason at all, because there's a video I made. It's called In Defense of Aleister Crowley. It was a thing I made last year. I hadn't made things in a while, and I was like, I got to make this. But no one's ever covered it. And I know the top, I would put myself in the top 5 category of experts on Crowley. And Paul Westford and Lon and Kenneth, I think his name Kenneth. He's also from Baltimore, which is weird. He has that Pure Buto, or how, still can't pronounce it, book. But no one's ever covered what I covered in that video. It's only a couple-minute video. But it's the letter to Cambridge that he wrote. He was supposed to give a lecture to a poetry society in Cambridge, and they disinvited him and sent him a letter and said, we heard about your child sacrifice stuff and all this stuff. And he wrote a beautiful letter back that basically said, I don't know why people keep tying me with this stuff. I usually don't defend stuff, but I'm going to defend this one. And it's become because of my associations with this author who actually had some, things to his life, that you're associating me with this, when I am absolutely against it. And he actually has a quote as well where he says, the seduction of children or infants is against the laws of the liberty, which is the law of, the book of the law, the Thelema. So I don't think, and towards the end of his life, it seemed like as he got older, he actually started to actually care what people thought about him, which I very much identify with.
Right. Chris, I totally agree with you. And I would add that when you look at Magic and Theory and Practice, when that's discussed, it's so clear that that book is covering everything. So it's just telling you what exists, and I can't find this other reference where he's saying like literally like, this is what I do. He's telling you, hey, I'm covering all the ground here.
That too, you're right.
This is included,
And he did have that quote too, where he says, I've been accused of being a black magician and nothing is further from the truth, because he went to a real black magician, seance. And he said it was the most disgusting thing he had ever seen. He was against bending wills. He said to bend another's will is to leave one's own citadel open.
So interesting, because it's the opposite of everything we're told about Crowley and his friend. And
I don't tell people much about him anymore, because you Google search him, the first 20 pages is going to be all disinformation and fake stuff.
Well, we did a thing where we talked about his history of being like, he was a religious, well-to-do Calvinist or Puritan, I forget which one, and he was sexually restrained and he was not allowed to eat sugars, right? And then eventually got really ill, moved in with his uncle, and he started being allowed to live a little bit. They're like, all right, you know what? Have a little bit of food and enjoy yourself a little bit, because you're going to die anyway. And he got better. And he's like, wait a second, you mean all of this chastising of myself wasn't helping me and actually might have been making me ill? And then once I started to like actually take care of my body, that's the thing that made me better. Holy guacamole. Maybe I should. And whether or not he got to a level where he was trying to have children in France watch him and other people have sex with each other in order to foster a less sexually restrained or controlled by the church society, that's where we
that was actually as far as I understand from the research I've done, which I have access to his diaries and things like that. I remember you guys probably saw when I was going to get invited to the Sync Talk in 2011. I wound up going to the anniversary of the World Trade Center thing here, where we have the World Trade Center in Baltimore, and I was supposed to be the headlining guest on that poster. Andres Jones, who's a fellow actor, that's in the Sync Book One, invited me on, and I had got a Crowley hood hat, like I remember you guys probably saw me wear it a million times. It's a real deal thing. It was in line with silk, and I can't tell you how I got it, but like I said, Outerhead member, and there's a lot of people that respect my knowledge on Crowley, and I just have to say that the people that like him for the wrong reasons, and the people that hate him for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, that's actually
word.
Yeah, it's a lot of misinformation. But as far as I understand, that was tainted cat blood that killed that guy in Italy, not anything else. And as far as like him dying, like I've read his diary because somebody gave me access to his diary, and he's having dinner with Gerald Gardner up until like July of 47. Totally living a decent life. He died in his apartment. He was fine. The last picture taken of him, he was, just sitting in bed with a bunch of books. He did not die poor. He did not have a son named McAllister. His grandson actually has a TikTok channel. He doesn't talk about Crowley much, but he's a pretty normal dude. And, it's just a lot of misinformation around him. And I guess I identify with that because I feel the same way about myself.
You seen Falling Down?
So why are you showing the Webby burger?
David got great, of course, because it's retro station and you've got video cassettes for everything. You're awesome. But and by the way, if you find it on Laserdisc, let me know. But David, he goes and he synchronizes this to Ace of Base, and it's amazing. Like it's absolutely, there's no way it's done on purpose. And of course, Ace of Base is the kind of thing you could get canceled for talking about in the sync book.
Base of Aces.
Dark Side of Oz type deal.
Well, if you look at Ace of Base and you look into their alt-right connections, right? I mean, this was back in the 90s. People knew about what Happy Nation meant and which sign they were talking about and what organizations Ace of Base was in. The disturbing Nazi past, or rather their connections with the Temple of Neon, which was sacrificing people in Sweden. There's all and then Ulf Ekberg's, some of the more disturbing.
This is the producer, and so the producer was ABBA's producer. So there's
ABBA's
like
producer. Yeah.
So there's a whole there's a connection there. That's why Ace of Base connects with ABBA. But then the base of Aces was the central submarine port for the Nazis during World War II. And so there's and so you can find some of this guy's older songs, but also I wouldn't make excuses for it, but I would give some. So I would make some explanation for it. So like at that time, like what is punk? What is anti-authoritarian? And so like it gets kind of weird because we're not listening to the lyrics of a political figure. We're listening to somebody who's pretty young and has a lot of attitude.
He's an idealist, and so that's the funny thing about Ace of Base is like Ace of Base is really not like about alt-rightism. It's about maybe like the Thule Society and Vril and this weird Swedish occult and all this other stuff, Maria Orsic, which is the stuff that's actually a lot more palatable anyway. But that's really that comes up in a Man Falling Down. Because in Falling Down,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Continue. I don't know if you guys remember, but when I first turned into Mercury's Messenger or whatever, it was a picture I found from 1555. It's actually behind me. I hung it up right there. It's in the sync book. It's a picture from 1555 of Mercury, Hermes, which is the archetype of Thoth, all that good stuff, and it was weird that I kept getting all these lookalikes. There's an unstylized Akhenaten that looks like me when I'm about 13. There's the Everyman statue. That's why I call myself the Everyman 777. There's the Everyman statue. Yeah, there it is. And then there's I'm a shower. I'm a grower, not a shower. It's very accurate. Tiny feet, all that good stuff. And I used to wear those hats too all my life. I've always wore snap brims. So it's just a weird, thing. And he's actually. That would be basically like the Hanukkah thing. I have one that I cut down to match that, which it actually goes with the 7 days a week, which is where sun is the Sunday and the soul.
Every night.
But that's a whole nother thing. But my point is that the Everyman statue was in the Joel Anthony West documentary Magical Egypt, and it looks just like me when I was about 18. And it's between God and the devil, or Thoth. Was it Thoth? No, it's Ra and goddamn Horus. And it's supposed to be the reason why we're here to move up consciously and all this crazy stuff. It's an occult secret. But I was watching a thing on Vril, and there was a demon they popped up, and it was like in the documentary, and it looked like me. That's just another lookalike. I got about
and Vril gets a bad rap because the Germans were into the Vril, but the Vril were something that was popular in the Slavic culture and in Scandinavia long before the Germans found out about it, and they started trying to say, "Oh, hey, maybe we can use this information to find our way to Agape or to these portals or whatever." But that's why I was pulling up. I just want to say really quickly with the Falling Down. There's a scene where he goes in and he sees this like. I don't know, leather baby, basically leather daddy. It's this guy who he's like a neo-Nazi, and he's an NRA
Sonny Surplus guy.
And he's like, you and I are just alike. And he's like, no, we're not. We are not alike.
Yeah.
We are entirely different.
be.
You've got like a sexualized, almost, I'll put it, desire and lust for violence.
He was like your typical Trumper, really. Like
well, whatever the left thought that meant, and vice versa, right? So, but the thing is, he's saying, hey, there's like a problem with order and chaos, and it's a whole different thing. And granted, he's also going insane, but he decides at that point he's not part of that thing. I think that's important with Ace of Base as well. There's a group of people that are looking into the androgyny of God, even, I think, comes into this quality where we're saying, hey, is the alt Christian right the antithesis, or are they just the same thing because they believe something with a crazed fervor desire for it as well?
Andreas, I kind of like the fact that Falling Down came out in '93. So,
right, it also came out the day and year that the World Trade Center was hit with a truck bomb.
Right. That was what
93, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. What date was
that?
But
so the thing that we can continue if you guys have more syncs on Falling Down. But the thing I was tying it together with was
interesting too, because most people don't know about Shiva. You know, they always make it out to be so evil, and they don't understand Hinduism, which I do pretty well.
It's definitely not evil or destructive. It's more like completion.
My oldest son, my firstborn, his middle name's Gandhi, which his friends love teasing him. So most people don't know, you know, there's 3 countries that got freed through no war, you know, border shit stuff. And you have Israel, who was given by the United Nations or whatever you have you. And then you have Pakistan and India that were freed through nonviolence. And I always make this
nonviolence is a strange. I don't know if I would argue that it was really nonviolent. I would say the circumstances of Pakistan and India are actually more conspicuous than Israel's. But maybe.
he wanted India and Pakistan to stay one country, but he was too old by that point to
Britain made the deal because of Thatcher. Thatcher decided that it was going to make way more sense to have a Commonwealth state.
This is what I understand. It's the same way with Taiwan. They want to have factions. They want to have factions to become the buffer zone.
I guess
and Pakistan was easier. Pakistan was easier controlled because there's a huge Pakistani Islamic faction in Britain. It wasn't so much that there was a difference between Muslims in Britain, Hindus in India and Pakistan. There are Muslims in India. There are Hindus in Pakistan. The difference was that the families that were in power in Britain that had made their lobbying for the last 200 years through drug smuggling, tea trades, opium wars, they'd all been in with the Thatcher crew. And they figured by creating a Commonwealth state, they could disrupt the autonomy and sovereignty of all these other nations while also giving a clandestine power like Britain has now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Thatcher was pretty. He did the same thing with Israel, though.
Absolutely. But with Israel, I would blame the United States even more.
Yeah, she did that because I think she was involved with the Noam Chomsky stuff too back in the late 70s.
Even it's really Bush in the 60s was involved with this, and what's interesting is Israel was given Gaza. When they rode into Gaza, they were using German equipment from World War II. They actually gave the 1960s. They had German guns, German tanks that had been fixed up. Everything that they had was former World War II, right?
And then they ended up in Rambo films because those weren't produced by those 2 Israeli guys, and then they were able to use their movies, like all this Israeli equipment, make it look American.
Canon Films, right?
Absolutely. The producer, what's his name? He was an Ergun. He was actually in the group. What's his name?
The CIA, arguably, I haven't found the paperwork to prove this, but I'd love to, that the CIA is involved with Canon. I want to believe it because because there's that great documentary on how Chuck Norris destroyed the Soviet Union, and it's all about Canon Films, really, and how Canon Films were used to produce these ideological drives that Romanians would take cassette tapes, copy the bootlegs, and they'd watch them in these flophouse parties, and the entire government was doing it until eventually it just collapsed. And I think that there's something to be said about it. I just really wanted to say, though, because I'm going to get lost in my train of thought, is L.A. because Miguel Serrano, who talked and recorded the books with Herman Hesse And Carl Jung, he did he's the creepy Chilean neo-Nazi who thought that Hitler was the avatar of Jesus or Vishnu or whatever, and was a vegetarian painter, which I guess partially true. But he recorded Jung and Hermann Hesse's recorded friendships and was a diplomat. And he wrote this book called El Ea, which is Allah, and it's talking about he, she. So it gets into this idea of God as the sexuality. And so earlier we were talking about the family idea, that is it God, a man or a woman? It's not that, it's something bigger. It might actually be the alchemical process, which is why the Thelemites and the Agape groups are obsessed with sexuality, as opposed to maybe just love.
Word.
Yeah, I just really wanted to,
right? The big G.
Yeah, real quick, my point before you guys can go back off on this, but my point was when I got heavy into Gandhi, I wrote a piece for nonviolence, and this was when I was really in a scientific mind back in 98 or 99, and I got a letter from his grandson thanking me. It was really cool. But I was going to say it's kind of cool because I kept seeing, when I got into Crowley hard, first I was a Crowley hater because I was like trying to figure out why he was so evil and how he was getting involved with the Illuminati, which they still do to this day. Every video they'll throw him in for a minute, but he had so many quotes that were similar to Gandhi's. And
this
then
is
later
Gandhi
I
when
found
he's young, by the way, British Gandhi.
Yeah. He actually got turned on to Hinduism and got the Bhagavad Gita from Helena Blavatsky. And a lot of people don't know that.
Yep.
So if it wasn't
There you go.
Right.
Good job.
It's true. It's true. And
Gandhi.
right, Helena Blavatsky's
Shiva and how people don't understand Hinduism. And Shiva is not the destroyer of worlds. He destroys things that are crappy to create something better. So he's not Galactus.
Well, he's part of a cycle. It's that tail at the end of Om, right? So like the symbol for Om, the upper part of it is Brahm, the bottom part of it is Vishnu, so the creator and the preserver, and then the tail is Shiva. But then there's the crescent with the dot, which is like the absolute beyond that, beyond that cycle.
Can we pull up that logo, the symbol of Theosophy?
Yeah.
There is no God higher than truth.
Yeah. So
I mean,
there.
You've got, so that's what's interesting. So if it's not actually Hinduism, then because then you've got Gandhi's really focus on theosophy, and so it's a theosophical British state that's been created. That's a new Hindu state.
Well, he was also Christian, right?
Gandhi was a theosophist. He was not a Hindu technically,
right?
And that's where all of his I'm a Christian, I'm a Hindu, I'm a Muslim stuff comes from.
Right. Well, Theosophy introduced Eastern philosophy to the Western world, like more than just about at that time, in the context of that time. And so it really wasn't until it's kind of weird the way that this works, but it was like even academically, so you have
in the science, what's her name? I just watched this cool documentary, Helena Af Klimt. It was this painter.
Klimt,
yeah. But yeah, and there was so much science involved with that. You're cutting edge on what optics, and where these bands of light and the frequencies and the wavelengths and these things that are getting down into the nitty gritty of how frequencies and how science and truth, these, there was a real push.
One time I was in Vienna, I went to the Guggenheim Museum, which is they burned down this theater. But he had done all the architecture. Helena did all the architecture.
That's
and
awesome.
His art style was highly influenced by Dutch painters who'd been in Japan, and he'd been smuggled art from Japan. So it is this interesting fusion of East and West, really.
Actually, speaking of which,
you had Be Here Now, and as odd as it is in the '60s, that introduced a lot of never mind.
One of Hitler's his teachers before he came to power. What's his name? Karl Hoffer. He was actually in Japan. Let me see if I can get his name right. Karl Karl Hoffer. No, not Karl Hoffman, but he was the teacher of. Who's the second-hand man of Hitler? The guy who jumped out of the parachute and landed in London. Oh God, I forgot all these names already.
Yeah, same.
But he was okay. Hold on. I looked it up.
And he was the last guy to be killed in Nuremberg with a rusty wire.
I'm sorry, it was Hilma Af Klint. I just sent a link there. It was
Yeah. Well, Gustav. Wasn't his first name Gustav?
Hilma AF. So Hilma off Clint. Yeah, there we go.
I do not know her.
Yeah, look at some of her images. They're so cool.
Oh wow, cool.
It's stuff
God,
that's
it
like
almost
proto,
looks
like projective
Frida Harris,
geometry.
Doesn't it look kind of like Frida Harris? I'm not Frida Harris.
Yeah,
Frida
exactly.
Harris? Yeah,
Yep, that's what who did the
it looks like
projective
that.
geometry.
Wow.
Interesting.
Is what it's
Yeah,
called.
you're
Real quick, I'm doing a video on William Crookes, which I cover in the Sync book, and John Logie Barrett, and the connection to the occult and spirit, the spirit world, to the creation of the television, which would hence be the creation of the phone. The phone screen, any screen you're watching anything on comes from the cathode tube, which comes from William Crookes trying to connect with the spirit world.
Right?
Hey,
we've
Chris,
discussed this a lot. Yeah, the
Right.
Crookes tube.
Hey, Chris,
Yeah, I'm
somebody
doing a video on that.
Right.
Hey, Chris, somebody in the YouTube chat is trying to ask you about the alien that Crowley saw. Lamb. Any thoughts on Lamb?
Well, I mean, I think Crowley kind of sums it up with a quote where he says that he believed that we're not going to evolve past anything, that we're ever going to come up with unless there's an outside source that, like an alien presence. Like we need to have contact with aliens, like on a worldwide mass level to go up, bump ourselves up consciously. I can't remember what exactly he says, but there's also that foreword to the Book of the Law from 1927 that people in the OTO high up will argue with me, and they'll go, "That's not Crowley. That's somebody else who wrote that foreword. It's only in certain books that you can get if you belong to OTO." Well, I have the whole quote. I used to quote it all the time. I had one guy look it up in his reference book, and then he apologized to me. He was high up. And basically he says, all the stuff about war. He says all the stuff about how, like football polls and guessing competitions and the cinema and the wireless and how that's all soothing things for fractious infants. He says the stuff about how becoming bisexual and epicene, which basically means all this stuff that's going on with the body. He says strange body modifications. He says that is actually, that means we're on the path towards destruction. And
if we create an artificial intelligence, is that enough though? Sorry, I just was thinking, like, if we made an artificial intelligence, will that be the thing that's enough to push us forward then?
I don't think so at all. And I think I agree with Christopher Knowles, where he always makes that joke that they're not as far on the AI as they pretend to be. It's not that advanced. It's actually really a joke, to be honest with you.
It's not sentient.
I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I feel like that's all like wrong as fuck. I mean, sorry to you, on my own show. Like it's crazy. I feel like every time I hear that, it feels like I'm in Starship Troopers and someone's like, frankly, the idea of a bug that thinks is offensive. Like that's all I hear every time. I don't hear any logical salient point ever. And so the problem is the AI is at a point where it knows everything you know. If it doesn't, can ask you. And so it's able to acquire information. And also, I've just decided recently that what I think AI is, like, I think a university education is AI. It's artificial intelligence. Well, you take a bunch of people and you install it on them. So we're at a point now where we're creating new intelligence.
I think it's really positive.
Like they're like I always, for some reason, have weird connections with weird people, especially because I'm in the hotbed here in Maryland. I mean, I know people in the CIA.
Right, and that's the other thing. Technology comes from Maryland. After living there, it's from there. It was there in the 60s and 70s.
But here's something I tried to, when I stopped doing videos, because I had about 3,000 YouTube videos, I was covering stuff they cover now and get 1 million hits on and get money for, but I somehow never took off. But I was trying to get, what's the guy that runs that doesn't like Aleister Crowley and runs that occult thing? I can't think. He always does. Yeah.
We had William Ramsey, not Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah, Gordon Ramsay. I used to talk. I
love William Ramsey. He's been on this show. He knows a lot about Crowley. Actually.
Yeah, he's definitely anti-Satanist. He's anti-Satan.
Yeah, which is good. He's against people killing cats. I get it. Yeah.
But I'm saying he would use me as a resource for getting facts straight about Crowley. So one time, this is years ago. If you guys are familiar with Frater Oz, who's high up in the OTO. I was talking to him, and I had found something in a comic book. I used to always find synchronicities in comic books, but Will knows I used to hyper read them. And it was a robot of Philip K. Dick, and Hanson Robotics had that robot of Philip K. Dick before they had Jules as well, and now they have Sophia, who became a citizen, who's supposed to be the most advanced, to think ex machina kind of thing.
A citizen of Saudi Arabia, a female artificial intelligent citizen of Saudi Arabia. I think they have.
Here's something I said William Ramsey a couple of years ago, and he didn't take it, and I didn't feel like making videos anymore. But so Frater Oz texted me. This is years ago, 10 or 15, somewhere in between that, years ago, when I used to do a lot of stuff. He texted me and he goes, "Hey, that's my friend's robot." I go, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I think his name's something Hanson, the guy that always does the TED Talks. He's the guy who runs it. I can't remember his first name right now, but he's in the OTO, and his wife's high up in the OTO. And I went on their Facebook page and I was checking it out, and they just have like tons of OTO stuff on there where they're at meetings and stuff. So the guy who has the most advanced artificial intelligent robot, Sophia, is actually a Salimite. And I thought that was interesting because the thing to do with will and everything, free will, and people have never covered a lot of stuff that I covered years ago. Yesterday I was in the dollar store and I overheard people talking about 9/11, and they were younger, and they go, there was a third plane. And I think they were talking about the third building that got announced, not a third plane. And I don't even feel like talking about it, so I don't really talk about it. But like, there's things that some of us have been around for a while. I'll be 45 this year. That I used to love talking about stuff years ago. In 2003, if I went around and said Skull and Bones, Illuminati, or New World Order to 1,000 people, I don't think one of them would know what the hell I was talking about. And in 2003, when I used to work with Martin Sheen on West Wing, he was the only person that I could talk to about this stuff. And he was campaigning for Kerry at the time. And I had given him a button with George Bush with a Hitler mustache. It was pretty funty. But real quick, my point
Kerry was Skull and Bones too. I don't know. Martin Sheen's also involved with the. He's a Knights of Malta, and he's a Galatian Catholic.
He's got his things to him, but at the time he was a very nice guy. And I could actually have almost like I'm having a conversation with you guys. I can speak esoterically, and I don't have to explain myself. It's kind of refreshing. In normal life, I can't do that.
Martin Sheen's a Jesuit, right?
Yeah, he's a Jesuit.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Not a monastic Jesuit, I can't imagine.
He's a Jesuit, no, and he did the Camino de Compostela, and so my mom and I did the Camino de Compostela where you walk across Spain, basically right after Martin Sheen did it, and so she knows him from that, and we went and saw his movie when it premiered. Emilio Estevez and him made a movie about it, which is pretty good. We're just all walking across the way, and he's connected and tapped in with the Peace Corps people, put it that way.
Okay.
He's also into like the solar cookers thing where you sell the solar cookers to people all around Africa and Afghanistan. Yeah.
But my point real quick, I hear you though. That's cool. My point real quick was that, and remember how Jake Coates, he used to have these things where he would say like 9/11 was this point where everybody was paying attention. So that's like a consciousness point for the world. Now, right. I always like to use the millennium as that for myself, because that was the point where I felt that things started happening for me personally, where synchronicity was lining up more in an as above, so below kind of way, which I don't know. I'd like to know when you guys first noticed it. But when I first noticed synchromysticism, I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I had this obsession with becoming an actor when I was like 3. And I was watching Rebel Without a Cause because James Dean was my favorite actor at the time. And he goes to the planetarium, and in retrospect, they're talking about the Crab Nebula and all this stuff. But at the time, I was 6 years old. And I remember he goes out of the planetarium, and he's walking down the stairs. And the bad guy, do you guys remember the bad guy's name? The guy he didn't like? His name was Buzz. And he says something to Buzz. And as he says something to Buzz, right here behind Buzz on the stairwell is a picture of the moon, because they're in a planetarium. And I remember I was 6 years old, and I was like, that's weird. And I thought about it as above, so below kind of thing at that age. And this was 10 years before the moon landing or more, and probably before Buzz Aldrin was famous, who I met, did a Masonic handshake with. That's a whole nother story. But I guess my point is I think that there's a point in 2007 when that kid got tased for asking John Kerry about the Skull and Bones thing, and everybody made a meme out of it, don't tase me, bro. Everybody in the world started looking up that video. Then they saw what he said, and then people started looking up, what the hell's that? Why did he get tased for that? And in my opinion, I think in 2007 is when people started understanding what's the Illuminati, what's the new. Now you can't go anywhere without everybody talking about it. It's kind of annoying in a way, but it reminds me of that, that Joker quote, where he goes, I'm just ahead of the curve. That's all. I think some of us
what do you think about
the curve.
What do you think of the moon landing? Do you think the moon landing was
fake?
Yeah. Tell us? What do you think? You're a video guy, so what do you think with Kubrick 100%. And everything?
I actually met all the guys that were in 2001 when I don't know if they're still living, but I met them about 6-7 years ago, maybe more. And I interviewed them about that and had it on my YouTube channel. But like I said, I deleted all that stuff because when you would Google search from I would say 2008 to 2013, if you Google search anything occult, anything conspiracy or anything, all my pictures from my blogs popped up. And I got kind of my brother started telling me I was going to get black bagged in 2002. So that's how long I've been really heavy into research and stuff when it comes to that stuff. But as far as that, I interviewed them and they told me some interesting stuff. But
you talking about Keir Delay?
You
interviewed Keir Delay?
I don't know. It was the guy. I don't like the movie. I just got a copy on Blu-ray, and I posted it as for sale. And I was just plugging myself. But no, I interviewed the guys that they came to Baltimore, and I interviewed all of them while they were at a table at a convention. But my point was, there's a recent interview from I think last year. It's the black comedian. I can't remember his name. He's kind of funny, and he has a show on. He has a show on here. Yeah, that's the dude. There's a show like yours kind of, and it had Neil deGrasse Tyson on it. And Neil deGrasse Tyson even admitted that no one's ever been out of low orbit, atmosphere. No one's ever been past what Virgin Airlines goes. And that's only a
Neil deGrasse Tyson's little orbit.
Dude, he's not. I'm sorry, but he's not going to work for a Pluto Authority for me.
He looks like low orbit.
No, I'm not talking about that. He's an absolute shill. I've hated him from day one. But my point is, even he admits that no one's ever been out of low Earth orbit. And there's always the Van Allen radiation belt, which is an absolute joke. And we shot a missile into that thing and made it even worse if you look that up. So, but my point was, a lot of us know all this information, but nobody picks our brains. Everybody wants to be an expert on everything and pretend they know everything. There's a whole book by Peter Ralston about ontology, is the study of knowing nothing. That's a thick book. I read the whole thing, and it's just telling you to fill in the blank. But my point is, there's some of us that have this knowledge that came before things were censored. I remember in 2004 or something, or 3, I was researching the game, the Illuminati card game by the other Peter Jackson, not the movie Peter Jackson.
Stephen Jackson.
And when they shut down his website in Florida in 1999 or whatever, everybody was going to his website. Yeah. Everybody was going to his website to get the cards, and it took them to George Bush Jr.'s campaign website for 2000. That's something you cannot find on the internet anymore. It's almost like some of us are Gnostic in the sense of the telling of things that were never written down. When it comes to conspiracy or occult, and we're resources that are not being used.
Web pages.
About it like that.
What I recommend is let's say you find a web page and you go to save the page, and you're just command save, control save the page, right? And when that's saved, then you can save it to your own repository. You can put it up somewhere. So I just put up.
Yeah, I just got tired of researching stuff. It's like
this website got taken down, and I put it up.
Eddie Lynn still goes all day, every day. And sometimes I'll tell him put that energy into something else, bud. Because Eddie Lynn's a great guy.
You should do it though. The more that Eddie does it, the more people see it, and the more people are connecting the synchronicities. And it's not dangerous, I think, for people anymore the way it used to be. There's the new X-Files. Have you watched the new X-Files, Dr. They? Have you seen the new X-Files?
Do you guys remember my quote from the end of my Sync book piece? Do you guys remember it? Huh?
Yeah. What's your quote?
Do you guys remember my quote from the end of the Sync book?
Find it.
Here's my quote. And then I'll be quiet for a while. I'll shut Mercury down. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that synchronicity has been moving from the unconscious mind to the forefront of the conscious exponentially in the past 10 years or more. Soon the world will not be able to deny that synchronicity is universal consciousness itself.
Well, actually, that works just as well for the quote from the X-Files. It's basically what Dr. Day says, something to that effect. Only he adds that because of that, the idea of hiding the truth is irrelevant now, because all you have is the truth is like one book in 1,000 in a library, and no one's going into the library, so it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So all the information's out there. Nobody cares. People know it. What is truth? We're in a postmodern, post-truth world. And yeah, what's true for you might not need to be true for me. Let's say I want to call it Berenstein. I can just live that way the rest of my life. Keep calling it Berenstein. You can't stop me. So, I mean, we're in a very strange point now, because you don't have to have a bag thrown over your head just because you decide to live believing you are away or the world's away. And I mean, that might actually end up being in our favor.
Can I just say to you, Chris, that I don't know. I'm not going to take an ultimate position, but I've thought a lot about the fucking lunar landing and Kubrick and everything. I got Kubrick's name tattooed on whatever. I had a long conversation. These guys know this, but I'm telling you, I had a long conversation with a guy who worked for NASA for fucking years, who was retired, who was there for the space race, but not Apollo 11, right? And I asked him the question. I was like we were at the Russian, which I'm sure Andreas knows, but we were sitting there, and I'm like, okay, man, I have to ask you. Like, I'm not gonna say we didn't go to the moon. I don't know what the fuck. I just want to have like your opinion on it. Like, what do you think? Did we go to the moon? And he was like, I believe we absolutely went to the moon. And I can also tell you for a fact that we faked tons of footage. And how do I know we faked tons of footage? Because I witnessed it firsthand. And I was like, why would you do that? And he said, basically, he was saying a type of PR. Like, we had to sell the public on this thing to get money and to do this whole thing. And he was also like, they didn't know what they would find. They were such open-minded people that the everyone involved with NASA was like, what could be there? They didn't want to do a thing where it's like everyone could see it anyway, let alone like have to fuck with like the technology to be able to actually broadcast that in real time. So so I asked about Apollo 11. He's like, I don't know, but I doubt that footage was real.
Well, I mean, they said they lost the technology to do it, and we have more technology in our phone. That thing, I made a joke on Facebook the other day. I said, anybody want to ante up some money? I'm going to the dollar store. We're going to build one of these. I mean, that thing with coat hangers is a joke. I mean, the whole thing's a joke. I mean, that documentary, What Really Happened on the Moon, was probably one of the better documentaries on that. You can see the wires, but you could say that's the fake footage. But, I wanted to ask Buzz Aldrin when I met him, but I felt it was funnier. I did I think Will probably will remember this. It was back in the day, 10 more years ago. I had the opportunity to meet Buzz Aldrin. So I go, I've met 300 celebrities and famous people, at least government officials, all kinds of people that ran for president I've talked to about stuff. But my point is, I told Will and everybody, I said, when I go, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give him the fellow of the craft handshake and see what happens. And I have this beautiful picture of him looking away while he's still shaking my hand, trying to figure out what in the world, am I a Mason or not? I thought that was funnier to do that than ask him about the moon landing and get punched by a old man.
It was the wrong knuckle or what?
Huh?
You're holding the wrong knuckle?
I don't know. I can send you guys the picture. I mean, it's pretty funny. Look up his watch, his what is it, Orion watch ads or whatever. That watch ad is pretty wicked. And look at the watch he's wearing and him revealing his Masonic, But when you go in the Masons, I know a few 32nd degrees. I know a Scottish Rite 30. He's just a freaking karaoke DJ. But one guy that's in the OTO that was teaching me a bunch of stuff for a while, he taught me 666 is love and light, which I have tattooed on my finger. That's that whole thing in the Sync book. I found out my birth number is 777. That's a crazy one.
Hey, Chris, what do you think Buzz Aldrin was in Antarctica back in 2016? What was he?
What do I think? What?
He was in Antarctica and he actually got injured and he had to leave the subcontinent. He was there and then allegedly, well, I think it's a true tweet. He tweeted with a pyramid allegedly a picture of a pyramid that was taken, and they said the evil is absolutely it's actually real. He just one-liner saying something to the effect of there's the evil that exists in Antarctica.
He can be so cryptic, can't he?
It was weird because I've probably been around in person Neil Adams 10, 15 times in my life before he passed a couple years ago. And Neil Adams is one of the top experts on Hollow Earth. And I wanted to interview him almost every time, but I don't know why I didn't. I don't know what time I was waiting to ask him about Hollow Earth. He was usually busy with people that were fans of his comic book drawings, because he was an artist for comic books. They look him up, Neil Adams, Hollow Earth. But like I said, I was around him a bunch, but he's got a bunch of stuff about Antarctica and all that stuff and Hollow Earth. And there's monsters in there, and creatures almost like Madagascar in a sense, like these things that had evolved, but things that live in Earth, and all this crazy stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things we'll never know. But my point about Buzz Aldrin was, and knowing Masons is all the Masons I've taught, all the Masons I know, all the ones that revealed secrets that I'm not supposed to know at all. Like there's one guy, and he was telling me when he was about, I think he was about 30th degree. And Frater X used to be great at telling this stuff too, infiltrated all the stuff, all the different orders, which I don't know where he's at anymore. We used to be friends, but I haven't seen him in years. But this one guy, he was 30, going for 30th degree or something. And he said they will offer you chances, like opportunities to learn different stuff. So they brought him to a guy that had a cross on his back that was dressed like Jesus and looked like Jesus. And he basically said, no, that's okay, because he's a Luciferian. Nicest Luciferian you'll ever meet, in the greatest sense of like a Prometheus Luciferian. I bring the light sort of Luciferos kind of deal. But he told me at one point he went to Washington, D.C. by the monolith there, the Space Needle, 666 feet high, 55 feet high, 111 in the ground. The capstone, the Jefferson capstone, I did a ritual there about Gnosticism. It's the cross and the coffin there. You have to look at it. It's all ley lines, but I know I'm doing Mercury stuff. I'm sorry, Jupiter. But my point is, he said he went to DC and there was a guy dressed like the magician in the Rider-Waite deck that had like a table, it was doing the as above, so below and everything. This is Masons. I'm not supposed to know this stuff, but my point is, the whole point of the Masons is when you go in first degree, they tell you, oh, the sun is ego, the sun is soul, the sun is light. Then you go second degree, and then they go, we were just messing with you. The sun's actually this, it's that, the other. You go third degree, the sun's this, that, and the other. You learn something. The whole thing is about keeping secrets. So when you're Buzz Aldrin and you're a 32nd degree Mason, you're flying Masonic flags on the moon, whether you believe that's real or not, don't think that he doesn't know,
right?
So many things that you would not even fathom. And I think there is a point to what you say, Dave, is that's the right name, right? Is that there's a point to it where people cannot handle the truth. And that actually was shot here in Baltimore, that scene, if I remember correctly. But people can't handle the truth.
The iPhone.
Their minds might be blown.
I wanted to jump in here for a second and say the Hyperborean thing. So, because earlier I just glanced at the comments here and I saw someone was saying they thought that the Hollow Earth thing is a psyop, and I don't know. So my thought is the idea that it's just empty underneath you, or it's just dirt underneath you, is kind of crazy. And scientifically, we know that there's water, and we found giant cavernous zones. There's areas for there to be. There's actually a larger sea than all the other seas, an ocean larger than all the other. And apparently, they're different. So I think there's a lot of room for there to be things underground. And the Hyperborean thing is interesting. A couple things also leading on that thought was neo-Nazi couple is arrested for alleged plot to completely destroy Baltimore. Right.
Oh, and get out of there.
Well, but this reminded me of the wherever that picture was with falling down, because he's like, dude, you don't get me. And there was just all these people that have been created by American propaganda to love the villain. Like they're just really to be a neo-Nazi is kind of the same as being obsessed with stormtroopers or something in Star Wars. You just love the bad guy, kind of character. But it's not really the Germans. These guys can't speak German. They don't know anything about the Orsich or the Thule or the Vril or anything like that. They have no idea about. It's kind of like the Anton LaVey Satanist versus the Aleister Crowley Satanist. This is a whole smokescreen for people. These are people that are obsessed with playing a thing. Like no German ever called themselves a Nazi. That's been created by the American resistance as a pejorative term. So if they're calling themselves something that's been fully created in America by Hollywood, right?
I always found it interesting, and I know I'm not going to get on the subject too hard, but you notice all the Nazis in movies that really push the envelope are Jewish. Think about it. Michael Rappaport.
I don't think a German wants to. Actually, a lot of Germans refuse to play them. Arnold Schwarzenegger refused.
Daniel Radcliffe.
I mean, it's not really strange. It's like I don't think if you're a German, you're gonna want to play that role. And if you're Jewish, maybe you have an idea about how a villain of that kind is portrayed in the culture. But the point I'm making is that there's this idea that there's a difference between this Americanist idea, which again, anti-Semitism has nothing to do with the Thule Society or with the Vril or with Hyperboreanism or with Shambhala or any of that stuff. All this stuff predates the anti-Semitism that was installed in the 1930s. This stuff's from the 1890s and everything else. So if we go back deeper, it has to do with this unified Tibet, unified Israel, unified Estonia. Those are these kind of Tartarian values that are universal, right? Isn't that the case?
There's also that aspect where people do this hero worship to certain people, and they have what you're saying, this Hollywood American version of what they are about. Well, think about all the people that admire Hitler. Hitler was a socialist dictator. Okay, most of these people don't like socialism, but somehow they like Hitler. I always think it's funny, Dave. I know you're Jewish. If you ever want to piss off a redneck that has a Confederate flag, tell them this. If you ever looked into Benjamin Judah, look up Benjamin Judah. He was a Jew from Israel. Or that area might have been from England though. His family was from there. But I think he was living in England. He came here. He was second in command with Jefferson Davis. He was a Jewish guy, and he wound up fleeing and escaping back to England. I think he became a judge or something. But he was second in command, and he put him in command of everything. I mean, he was literally Jefferson Davis's right-hand man. And then if you dig into it, and this is from Jefferson Davis's wife and people that were around him, Jefferson Davis was actually in a homosexual relationship with Benjamin Judah as well. So if you ever meet a redneck that's pushing all that stuff, tell them, hey, well, did you know Benjamin Judah?
Just remember how progressive and forward-thinking the Confederacy was.
Right,
absolutely. Yeah. And Larry David found out recently that his great-grandfather was a Confederate who owned slaves and fought in the Confederacy. So, yeah, the idea of anti-Semitism in the Confederacy just did not exist. It's interesting. It's I totally agree.
I love Larry David. That's got to be my favorite Jewish guy.
Cool. I'm also German, by the way, just to clear that up. I'm a certain percentage
it's the whole kit and
Ashkenazi.
caboodle.
Chris, well, I got my DNA test. My fiance got me, and if I come back a percentage Jewish, I don't know what's going to happen to me. I know I'm going to come back.
You'll just have to watch that video, The Believer.
Chris, I forgot the Confederate guy's name. Hey, Chris, I got a question for you about Babylon working. Okay, Babylon working, as you know, Jack Parsons and
I've done one myself.
So this is when since you mentioned the Civil War agenda, whatever is with Jefferson,
Benjamin
but
Judah?
basically you see there's a homosexual relationship, but Babylon working involves. We got a couple.
I see where you're going. Is the Confederacy into Thelema? Let's do it. Let's go.
The Babylon working on just in like layman's terms. When I recreated my Babylon working, what I did was there are in astrology there's 3 different signs. There's a fixed sign, there's a muted sign, and an unmuted sign. The fixed signs are, if I remember correctly, organizers. There's cardinal signs. There's fixed signs, muted signs, and cardinal signs. One's a leader, one's an organizer, one's a communicator. Sagittarius, things like that, they're communicators. Aquariuses are organizers, and Cancers are leaders. This all comes from Love Signs, Linda Goodman, which I recommend Crowley or her on astrology. But my point is, I had a girlfriend at the time who was an Aquarius, so she was an organizer, and I had a friend. She was a Sagittarius, she was a communicator, and I had a friend who was an Aquarius, And me and him were smoking pot the whole summer, seeing how high we could get every day. And I go, I want to recreate the Babylon working, so I need you to be the L. Ron Hubbard in this situation. So I was the Jack Parsons, the girl was the Scarlet Woman, and he was the L. Ron Hubbard. And all the L. Ron Hubbard does is he's the stenographer. He's the thought of the situation. So all
he's the Edward Kelly, right?
Right.
Well,
yeah, he's taking notes.
But what
John
they
D
did
was
is,
taking notes, I guess. Right?
Yeah. But what they did was they wife swapped, and that's what ruined everything with them. If they never wife swapped, they would probably would have continued.
Talking about Marjorie Cameron?
You're talking about Scrying though too, because you had Edward Kelly and John D. Like Edward Kelly was the one that was actually like had the thing, he had the connection, and John D was like,
yeah.
And then John D was like, but also here's the thing, let me fuck your wife.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, but in the Babylon working,
that's some great crystal work. You know what I was thinking? Maybe you'd do a little bit better if I got in your wife.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They took it another step that shouldn't have happened. But my point is, I just told my friend that he wasn't present or anything, but I said,
surprised he's in this picture. He's like,
I said, just write down what's happening in this month or this time that we're going to set aside where we're working on this.
We should redub the Gumby cartoon to be about Edward Kelly. And can you imagine?
I thought you were going to say the Babylon working.
No, that's what it is. It's going to be the guy. I mean, and Pokey's like, I don't think this is such a good idea.
Wait a minute. Dude, I have to say something. Is this a synchronicity? Is it a synchronicity between Ed Kelly, John D., and L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons with Marjorie Cameron? So I've never seen that pointed out before, but that's really interesting because it's is that what's the deal?
Well, to be honest with you, I think Crowley and Rose are more the Edward Kelly and John D. of the last century, because you have to think about it. Rose was the one that was communicating with Lamb, and Crowley was the one who was writing it down. So I always thought of Rose and Crowley as the Edward Kelly and and John D.
Yeah. When was the last time you read Liber 49?
Like a Laurel and Hardy versus a Three Stooges.
Because they specifically bring up the 80s. And I know this because I was listening. I was talking with Jason Barrera about the whole Lana Del Rey sync with Liber 49 specifically. They bring up a lot about the 80s, and
there's the 40s and the 80s. So the one from the 40s will come, and the one from the 80s will come. So we're talking
about a generation,
so they're like David Bowie and Lana Del Rey,
right?
Yeah,
but we're talking about a generation, like that's.
Yeah. Okay. So Chris, so this is why I brought this up in the first place, because I was surprised that you said that the wife swapping was a surprise. I thought that is the prerequisite, because what happened with Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard, and that John D. fathered Edward Kelly's daughter. You know, and also the last one is, I want to mention all these people like now we're talking about going to space. Because Jack Parsons, he's a spaceman, right? And now we're going to Elon Musk. Elon Musk with Johnny Depp, who's an in-depth, a magician as well. He was in his apartment with Amber Heard, and there's a bunch of mirror scrying going on. If you notice that,
what's weird? Headlines. My best friend, I guess you'd call him, is Johnny Depp's close friend, and I think that's weird. And my best friend also has Kenneth Anger's address. And I've been trying to get it off of him, but he's good friends with Johnny Depp. Maybe I'll ask him to ask him for me.
So something's going on. I have no doubt they're doing Babylon working in the apartment.
I think James Franco would be the one who would try a Babylon working because of all his. But James Franco falls under that category. Is the same with whatever the hell her name is, the satanic spirit cooking. Bitch. Abramovich. They fall under that category of the people that misunderstand Crowley and take his work and do evil with it. It's funny, if you ever read book 4, I remember when I was younger, and I first got into Crowley. I got into him through conspiracies in, let's say, 2002. And I hated him because I read all the misinformation. And then there's an OTO lodge here. It's called the William Blake Lodge here in Baltimore. And they were holding orgies across the street from my house. And we were figuring this shit out. And listen, we were figuring this out in Yahoo groups. But I found out all kinds of stuff later once I started meeting people that had been to the open meetings, how the cakes of light work and all this kind of stuff. Like they burn the semen and the blood in the cakes of light. They put it in the oven since AIDS, and then they sprinkle it in afterwards.
Okay, Martha Stewart, we get the point.
But see that one right there?
And this is the guy you're saying you weren't the one who talked about skinning the cat. This wasn't you.
No, absolutely not. I don't join
no animals involved. It's just semen and menstrual blood.
I've never done that either. The only thing I ever wanted to do was the basically you drink a girl's period blood for the moon, but that's been going on since King and Queen.
Oh my God, have you ever eaten placenta? I was at a party and this girl gave me some of her placenta. That shit, dude,
that's an immune boost, isn't it?
Have you butt chugged placenta?
Dude,
no,
come on.
She had it in a vial, and it was frozen.
Almost a family show.
It's the most nutritious thing a human being can eat.
At least call it an Astro Booth or something like that.
An Astro Booth, yeah. You turn ayahuasca upside down and you see the whole process.
I know what you mean. I just don't.
Hey, Chris.
I feel bad for people who don't know what you mean.
You've been learning doing a lot of acting for a while. I mean, you know the Met Gala, right?
Real quick, I was going to say that book 4. It's so thick. I used to always turn to certain pages and read chapters out of order. And this girl had me move in with her, and I didn't pay attention to where I was moving. And I got there, and I don't know if Eddie Lynn might have been my friend by then. And I got there, and I arrived at the house, and the house was 418. That was the address. I took a picture of me pointing my Jupiter finger at it, which in the store, they're all pointing fingers in all my store signs. So that's for you guys. But my point is I turned to a certain
Some
chapter.
people want to know. Suzanne Mark's all about it.
The day I moved in there, I turned to a certain chapter and I read it. And it was really funny. I don't remember which one it is, but he basically in there, he's going, I can't believe all these people have orgies when I'm talking about orgies, because when I'm talking about orgies, I'm talking about it in the original sense of the word, and it meant just a bunch of people getting around talking. So
right. I remember this Italian movie from the 60s about these Roman kids having an orgy, and that was totally not what I thought it was.
Yeah. Like, this is not the movie I was trying to rent here.
Now I definitely want to find
We're having an orgy right now. You know what I mean? In the original sense of the word, and that's usually what Crowley's using.
The word church is the same, actually, whether
we're holding court.
Congregate.
You could say orgy if you really want, I guess. I mean, but
no, I've been practicing nonviolence for 25 years. I've never harmed anything that's not
this
a human.
This is nonviolence. This is verbal violence. I'm just kidding.
Huh?
I was just kidding. No, but the Book of the Law is really weird because it does tell you to do things that would have gotten you burned at the stake in Maryland or Virginia maybe a couple hundred years ago. I mean, the witch cakes, like you're kind of bringing up. I mean, even now, like, I'm worried that YouTube will be like, we don't want to monetize this. Like, imagine whose commercial break comes right after that. Like, someone's watching YouTube and all of a sudden it's like, and Tide. You know, what are they going to? So, I get where they're going. They're trying, but also society's at a point where, yeah, you can talk about these things. Like, if we were doing,
and there's a historical value to it too. It's not like we're just talking about like, hey, the other day I was.
David's in the unique position to talk about placenta. Most of us guys don't have a reason to, but if someone's actually experienced it,
Howard Stern had a person eat it on there, and I'm sure that's on YouTube somewhere.
Right, exactly. No, my mom was an OBGYN. Apparently, there's a lot of reasons why, like, it's healthy and everything like that. Yeah,
people encapsulate
the healthiest thing
doulas
you can
will
possibly
encapsulate.
Eat.
Yeah.
On YouTube, there's this guy that was showing all the messed up stuff that you can type in on YouTube and find all this hidden stuff, and a lot of it was monetized. And one was a homosexual guy sticking dildos up another dude's butt in his reaction, and they're monetized and they're on YouTube. So YouTube are a bunch of hypocrites sometimes too when it comes to a lot of this stuff. If you type in certain keywords, you'll see a lot of stuff, and a lot of it's monetized. And it is not stuff that anybody should have access to on YouTube.
But this is weird to me then. Like, why are the Democrats not the party of the Thelemic publicly? And it seems like conservatives, they've got the libertarians, but they also have the Christian right. So what's going on here? It seems like you've got occultists and Christian right kind of on being defended by the same group, or am I missing the point? Or what do we do about the Christian right?
What was that thing that Robert Anton Wilson said once? It was when you're 19 you'll call yourself a liberal, or when you're 18 you'll call yourself
Right.
a liberal, and when you're 30 you'll call yourself a conservative, but you'll never
Yeah.
change a value.
Yeah, it's musical chairs. If you want to see some good musical chairs, watch Jenny McCarthy and Jim Carrey on Larry King Live talking about vaccines and autism. Now it's like people you have to get up, you go in the circle, they move out a chair, and then you're like, oh, we're on. So it's basically like you have a bunch of you have a checklist, and you have to meet this criteria to belong to the group. So it's like that tribalism. So it's like you're like, oh, I got this one taken care of. Oh, I got this one too. This is where I stand on abortion. This is where I stand on this. And then as soon as you meet one that doesn't fit with and so that's how they keep fractioning it up further and further and just dividing the whole fucking population against, because you can't organize.
Should we be concerned?
Right.
Is the Christian right? Is that the same thing as a Satanist group? Or I don't know, because I see them as trying to position themselves as the good guys. And I've been around a lot of Christian conservatives. Are they the same as the Satanists, or are they not? I mean, I know a lot of good Christians, but that's not the same as the control mechanism, right?
Well, let's think of it this way real quick, what Dave just said. And I think George Carlin, it's a quote I use of his all the time. I think he summed it up perfectly, what Dave just said in a nutshell. He does an interview where he says, and this is the thing why I've always got kicked out of groups, and I guess I've always identified with the Lucifer character as far as being, they say Lucifer is really an allegory of being in your mom's tummy and getting everything you need and all the warmth, and then you're expelled into the world. They really say that's the allegory of Lucifer. And there's also the Prometheus thing where you're giving knowledge. I bring the light, which I have tattooed here, is Lucy Sparrow in Spanish. But my point is, he says, you can see the whole world in an individual's eyes. But once they start, they start grouping together. Once you get 1, 2, 3, or more, they sacrifice the individuality for the sake of the group. And you will experience this all through your life. You'll be talking to somebody and you'll totally dig them. They'll dig you. They have original ideas. You have original ideas. You're exchanging, you get along really good. One other person comes around, and then one of those things gets dropped, like you're saying, a checklist. So now they have to conform. See, I don't conform. I don't join. I don't conform. I'm an individualist, and I practice individuality. I have been for years. I think do what that will. It's a great motto. It's love is the will, love under law. And it just means seeking your will, but you need individuation in a Jungian sense to do that, because this is your path, not anybody else's. And as long as you don't cause harm to anyone else. And I will say, I'll put a side note on that with the Crowley thing, where he says, don't force others to do things against their will, because it'll leave one citadel open. And the citadel, in a sense, to draw some synchronistic thing to it, is almost like when Darth Vader goes into his little citadel thing, and he shuts the door on the guy, because that's your what do you call it? What do the occultists call it? The room that you meditate in, chamber of reflection. Yeah, so it's almost like the citadel's in your mind, and I don't know if you ever seen Dreamcatcher, the Stephen King thing. I loved it. The one character, he would go in his mind with his thoughts, and it was all file cabinets in there. And I like to think of it like that, and that's my citadel, where all my thoughts are my original thoughts, not anything that's been programmed or unoriginal, like all these people. There's 99% of people who are unoriginal these days. David Byrne summed it up best. He said, the two biggest misconceptions in this world is that every person's unique and life has meaning. But I think my point is that you need to follow your own thing, and as long as you don't harm anybody else, you should follow your will, and that's what everybody should do, I think. And when you start sacrificing things for people and for groups and for whatever, we're only passing this way once, man. You might as well be real to yourself. I worked in Hollywood for 10 years, and they would tell me to do a lot of stuff that I didn't want to do. And when they told me to do stuff I didn't want to do, I didn't do it. And that's why I'm glad I own a video store now. I can kick people out, and I'm not going to fire myself.
I agree with you, Chris. I'm still in Hollywood. I'm still in the business. I'm still a cog in the machine, and it's scary. You were in the union before, right? And
I'm in Screen Actors Guild, or I was.
It's this battle between individualism and collectivism, and the collectivism, which is basically the left spectrum of things, and they would not take anything else. I mean, you're joining them or you die. You're starved to death. That's why they put it. The whole vaccination thing is another. It's like, now they're threatening to strike if not everybody gets forced the needle down the,
well,
get a jab
that's
down
why
the
I'm glad
skin.
that's why I'm glad I could open up a video store, because I still kind of get to talk about the things I want, and I do infuse synchromysticism into some of those conversations when I'll meet somebody that is more into esoteric things. And it's weird too, because like I identify as Randall more than any other fictional character in Clerks, and I woke up one day and my fiance said, you need to stop talking about this and that and do something with that energy. And I did. And that's when I came up with the idea for a video store. Then I'm in the video store 2 months later and I go, holy crap, I'm the end of Clerks too. I'm Randall. And I didn't even realize it, whether it was conscious or subconscious. But I think you have to follow your bliss. And I imagine, Eddie, that there's something that you could do. I mean, there was that guy that was involved in comic books, and I worked at a comic book shop, and I watched those go woke. The 14 years I was working there, about 2010, everything started going woke, and the comic books, the normal people that were coming in didn't want to read them anymore. They were getting disenfranchised, and then these people were coming in. It's almost like Big Bang Theory, like Chris Knowles always makes fun of. It's just this manufactured, I'm a geek, I'm a nerd, it's all fake, it's phony. It's the Michael Tsirion thing about
if I don't understand it, it's not real.
The inauthentic person. You're going to Hot Topic and you're dyeing your hair red or orange, and you're saying, look at me, I'm gay, I'm straight, I'm this, I'm that, I'm punk, I'm goth. All these labels that people want to put on themselves. But I'm saying it's a mask to create a personality, because you have no personality.
Eckhart Tolle's canceled.
As much as I don't like Woody Allen, there's a great scene in one of his movies. I can't remember if it's Annie Hall or whatever, but Woody Allen's walking down the street and he runs into this couple, and it's almost like a dream sequence in a sense, because he doesn't really have the conversation he has with them, and he's unhappy because how he is in his movies, and he's looking for love, and he asks the girl, like, why are you with him? And I can't remember what exactly they say, but basically the girl says, well, I'm unoriginal and I have no real thoughts, and so does he. So we just watch mundane stuff and do mundane stuff and think this is a great life. This is everybody. Go on Instagram. I try to make original posts. I create original things. Most of my things are original, that I've created. I'm on knowyourmeme.com from 2006 or 7. I created the Allison Walking on Sunshine meme. But most people regurgitate everything everybody else does. Even, they're just dancing to a song. They're doing this. The world is going this way. It's dramatically, almost like the technology singularity is idiocracy coming at double speed. The processors are doubling every second. And every day you're going to go out, you're going to hear this stuff. Every day you go on the internet, you're going to hear this, and it's going to be regurgitation of the same thing. And everybody can pretend they're woke and they're smart. Nobody's changing nothing. It's going in this direction. Get ready for Welcome to Sam's Club, I Love You, and Why Come No Tattoo, because it's around the corner. Sorry.
No, well said.
Hey, can I just point out that Alex Fulton shared recently that the 1-year anniversary of the theatrical release of Moonfall was the day that balloon was shot down. And so if you guys don't mind, I mean, I don't know what the hell is what, but I have a little theory on that balloon situation, and I might get something wrong. Anyone's welcome to correct me here in the comments, whatever. I'm just trying to follow it. So like, I guess there's multiple balloons, right? There's like 4 balloons or something in different places around the world, and they drift over a long span of space, right?
Actually, there's like tens of thousands of balloons. The irony is this. So Project Loon, which we covered at some point, is a Google project and the balloon material is made in China. So the amount of balloons that could exist beyond the ones that were made for Google are obscenely huge. And just the ones for Google alone are already in the thousands. But the Chinese have their own, and the deal is that you create a mesh network with them, and so they're able to connect with each other. Google's ones actually shoot lasers to each other in order to have laser fast internet sent from one balloon to another.
Oh, interesting.
The size of like apartment buildings.
So I know that so I was seeing that they're saying Canada, a couple states in America. Was there South America? There's India, and there was speculation on Australia or something, but like, so basically there's like what they call the quad or something. There's like 4 quadrants in the world that have all told China that if they attack Taiwan, that they'll intervene. And so my thinking was not that this is necessarily that these are EMPs, but is it possible that they're a demonstration that they can get into your airspace that easy? So if they did have an EMP,
I don't think it's really as big of a deal as so what I think is that this week we have Damar Hamlin compression artifacts on the video. We have Ukraine to Russia conflict is still going. There's the Biden laptop admitted to be real. There's so many real things going on that they just need a distraction. And if you look at it, there was the balloon, the Japanese spy balloons of let's go. I think I have it. Spy balloons of 1944 that floated over.
There was actually
Montana.
a bomb that went off that we didn't hear about. There was actually the only there's 6 people that died when a Japanese bomb went off in a balloon in Oregon.
Right, in 42 and 43 or something. So there's a 42, 43, and a 44 balloon system. And this got Americans to believe in the imminency of Japan. That along with the idea of the Japanese kids launching these cute little lanterns. And there's like, oh, lanterns landing on the shore. That must be all. But this was all in Montana. The other thing is Montana is new Montana data centers. They just built these 10 underground data centers in Shelby, Montana, and there's a bunch more. So there's a thing called the Flipper Zero, which I showed earlier, which is a thing that allows you to scan, and you could build a bigger version of this, but it would scan all the cars in a parking lot and copy all of the codes, right? So you could also use something like this to scan all the handshakes being done by an iPhone or anybody who's logging into these networks in order to get into the networks and bypass the network. And if you did enough of these sweeps back and forth, you could also use these to get into people's refrigerators or any technology they have that's smart. And you could build a mesh network of internet in the United States. So if the internet went down, then you could use their own internet.
Smart car with a piece of white chalk.
Yeah.
So guys, I mentioned this in another show, right? In on Wednesday show, the sync that I kind of put together was that the year 2025, 2025 is basically the year that the general of Air Force said that they're going to engage in the war with China in the year 2025. But it's also the year that NASA is planning to launch Artemis 3. Artemis 3 will be the moon landing with humans. Right now, it's just testing with 1 and 2, but 3 will be the year 2025, where they're going to put man on the moon again, and also NASA declare war against China too, saying that
if you
China's
believe
a
they
big
put a
threat.
man on the moon, there's nothing up their sleeves, nothing is cool.
If you believe they put a man.
But no, real quick, here's some stuff from my brain. Back when I used to do the yellow balloon synchronicity thing, I know Will's definitely familiar with that. All the yellow balloons used to pop up in my life. I'm very familiar with Project Loon because they all their pictures were yellow balloons. So that was something I researched heavily. Jason Douglas Harford, who's on Facebook.
But technically, they're all kind of pseudo invisible. Like from the right distance, you can't see
Project Loon. If you type in Project Loon and any of the old pictures come up, all their pictures were yellow balloons.
Hey Chris, that was such a creepy photo of you as a kid with that fucking balloon. It was like, how did you get such a creepy photo of you as a kid? That's precious.
I have no clue, but that yellow balloon followed me everywhere. I was watching it one day. That balloon that pops up next to John Ritter says, "Turn back now." And then the yellow balloon in the sewer. I mean, there's a million of them. But what I was going to say is here in Baltimore, and I'm talking, I could walk there from my house in 30 minutes. About 10 years ago or so, there was a balloon that they put at Martin State Airport. Type it in. Martin State Airport balloon. And it was this big high-tech balloon that all of us Baltimoreans were getting really pissed off about. It's a spy balloon. And they had it up here and they were pretending that it was for missile air defense in case of nuclear war or something. But it's Martin State Airport, Baltimore balloon. And you will hopefully find pictures if they haven't scrubbed it. But it wound up detaching and flying through Maryland and landed in somebody's field in the country here, but it was a spy balloon, and you can look into that story. It's pretty interesting. But Martin State Airport, it should be on there. It was a spy balloon.
You're using DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, hey Chris, I have a question for you. Is that Prince William visited Baltimore? Remember, like 2 months ago, Prince William from England. He was in Baltimore for his Earth shot.
Everybody comes here. That's why I meet so many of them.
True.
Okay,
Kanye
I was
West was
wondering-
here in Frederick, Maryland when all that stuff was going down.
Yeah.
It's only like an hour away. But
Right.
no, look up that balloon and research what that balloon was about. That was in Martin State Airport.
It actually goes to
detached.
Germantown.
Dude, somebody in the
Well, they
comments
had
says
two of them. They had two of them, and the one in Martin State Airport, like I said, I could walk to from this house. And it was huge. You could see it everywhere. It was almost scary, like that.
Hold on, wait.
balloon
What,
and fucking AI.
what did you say, David?
I was saying somebody in the comments says Dark Side of the Balloon, and it was funny because I read that right after I was thinking about that time that the pig got away. So like they had those giant inflatable pigs at Pink Floyd concerts, and like the pig like detached and like flew over, like it landed in like an old couple's backyard, and like they had like been offered to like money for its retrieval. Like they had like a reward put out for if someone could return the giant fucking pig, and then they said they didn't want any money. They were just, you know, really weirded out by the whole thing or what, I don't know.
Do you remember the story of the little girl that launched the red balloon, and it lands in this other girl's yard, and it has a note, like return note on it? It's a story you can look up. I think Trish and Rob McGregor carried it.
Doesn't the little prince take a balloon, or how does the little prince?
Right,
go?
but this is funny because it's the Wizard of Oz too. That's how the wizard ends up there. And then you have Trump attached to this, with people were saying, "Oh, there was balloons during his president, whatever." It's just the just to have more Wizard of Oz symbolism attached to Trump. I just find kind of fun and interesting.
Well, Dr. Marvel is Oz, which is all Parsons 7/7 stuff. But what I was going to say, I had a piece of that wagon in a card one time I got in DC at a show. But my point was, the little girl launches this red balloon. It lands in another girl's yard a couple miles away. They both show up. They both have a whatever animal, a guinea pig that has the same name. They have the same name. They're wearing the same color outfit with the same shirt. It's a crazy story. There's like all these synchronicities with these two girls. They have the same exact name. I'm talking first name, last name, everything. But yeah, you got to look into that balloon that was here. I don't know why it's not popping up. It might have got scrubbed from the internet, but
yeah, if you find it, you can send it.
It was at the Air Force Base. It was at the Air Force Base, Martin State Air Force Base.
I'm not that familiar with all the Doctor Strange stuff, but I found it really interesting that like Pink Floyd has had so many references to Doctor Strange. It's in the album More when it says Doctor Strange is always changing size, but then it's also there's Doctor Strange imagery in the cover for Saucer Full of Secrets as well. But yeah, and in the movie, the newer movie Doctor Strange, the first one, they play Lucifer Sam in there off of Piper at the Gates of Dawn. It's kind of cool.
Well, Christopher Knowles' book, Our Gods Wear Spandex, actually explore that Doctor Strange is based on Jack Parsons, which I discovered years later. If you look at the original drawing of Abin Sur, I think it is, whatever guy gives the lantern, the Green Lantern, the ring, I think it's Abin Sur, the original comic book from whenever that Green Lantern issue came out, 1960, whatever. He looks just like Crowley, Abin Sur. Literally looks like the guy drew it based on Crowley.
Well,
there's always weird stuff with comic books.
Jack Parsons' middle name is Marvel, so
yeah.
You know, I'm pretty sure.
But I think some of that's intentional, is what I'm saying.
Same thing with Suicide Squad. You know, that was his team. Suicide Squad.
I didn't know that Jack Parsons' middle name was Marvel. That's true.
Yeah. That's why I said
Jack
that.
Marvel.
And then his team building the rockets and stuff was the Suicide Squad, right?
Totally.
His name is Jack Marvel Whiteside's Parson.
Yeah.
Oh, I knew the Whiteside. Yeah.
Marvel is actually the maiden name of his father.
Oh, okay.
And
so
in Wizard of Oz, that's Oz's name when he's the psychic. And
we can't say what L. Ron Hubbard's nickname for him was.
Dude, what's the name of the psychic in the Wizard of Oz at the beginning before?
Marvel, Dr. Marvel.
That's right. You're right. I knew that. Okay. Yeah,
I went to DC when I found that out, and I went to a comic book show, and a guy had one of those cards where they take like jersey pieces or whatever, and he had a piece of the wagon, and I bought it. So I had a piece of that wagon for years. I have Wizard of Oz over here somewhere right there.
So there's so many other books aside from the main Wizard of Oz that L. Frank Baum did. Has anybody read all of them?
I read a lot of them. Yeah.
I would maybe that would be a fun thing to toss in all of the text from that and give Chat GPT to give you a
dude.
I've only read all of the Oz books. I have this version of these books, which is awesome because they're super old. But I have not read any other Baum books besides these. I have read his Moo pre-Oz books about Lemuria.
Yeah.
TikTok of Oz.
TikTok of Oz is
what do
really
you
good.
think
The one I
connection is
wanted
there?
to let me point out the sequel. Actually, Ozma of Oz. If you haven't read all of these, is the first transgender. It's about a boy who's trying to find the princess of Oz and finds out that he has been turned into a boy, but he was the princess, and he's actually a boy he's a princess in a boy's body. And so he has to do this thing, this ritual spell to release the femininity inside of him and allow himself to become Ozma of Oz.
What year is that from?
Like 1914 or early,
At the same time, you have a lot of these like books coming out that had to do with like the Great White Lodge and a lot of the like earlier, that there's a connection between some of the Theosophy work, like with a lot of that language with using language of Lemuria, using language of like this great.
Well, remember Will and them used to follow Robert. Jake followed Robin Tooney, and then I remember if I remember correctly, I think it was Will's blog did a thing on Faruka's Balk or whatever the hell her name is from from the witch movie.
David, we're gonna have to do an Oz thing again because we did an Oz thing and somehow it didn't get recorded.
Yeah, like I feel like that was like 3 hours of a Wizard of Oz conversation that was just fully loaded, and then the whole thing just disappeared. It didn't work. But hey, Andreas, I just put something in the private chat here of I believe it's a 1954 Disney Wizard of Oz that came out on 9/11. So
this is so important. Thank you for bringing this up.
So like this is one of the creepiest freaking things. So right there, right off the bat, you have that Mason, like the
checkerboard.
They just have that sliding out of the book a little bit. And he's like, "What's this?" He promises the kids that they're going to do a full color, spectacle Wizard of Oz. That's like the Disney Wizard of Oz.
And he shot this in black and white, as far as I know. There's no color version of this. In other words, like Disney has a color version of every film that they ever shot that they can. In other words, this was shot in black and white. Most of their stuff is shot in color, so it later could be shown in color, right? So that's a specific artistic choice, is important to say.
Right. So you'll have the patchwork girl shows up, explaining how everything is patches. When what does she say? With the patchwork quilt. So it's basically like people have suggested that it's actually referencing the it's called patches when you use trauma for programming. So like if you're influencing somebody in that way and you want to set up like a compartment, they call it like patchwork. So there's the whole thing there.
Or if you're fixing coming up a lot recently. Code, you make a patch to fix something.
So see if you can jump in a little bit here.
To have a blog. I don't know if you can find it way back, but her name was Esoteric Kitten. She had people that were in Hollywood that were like have all that MK Ultra shit done to them. Right. I mean, she did a whole thing on that.
Yeah. So totally. So here we'll have like this whole thing where they're explaining this deal here, and it sets up the characters. But like the lion turns evil, right? And then he's sitting at a Masonic throne. So like after this little song and dance number from the Patchwork Girl, who's super creepy anyway, what the hell? It'll like you see. So it's so if you look at the lion in his chair, like he's got the double-headed.
Well, I gotta quickly look at Ozma for a second, so just so I understand it. Okay, and then he's not so cowardly looking. He looks angry.
Yeah.
Well, he's missing the heart, right?
Right.
Where is he turning upset?
Yeah, well, he's pissed off the whole time. So like, and they do this little song and dance, and they march up this cake. A cake in Hebrew gematria, in the Hebrew actually it equals 119. It's kind of funny, in like the randomness of this cake. But then you have the 3 candles on the top of the cake is remarkably reminiscent of the 3 candles used in Freemasonry, where you have the stand.
Oh wow! So the lion, so the fierce ferociousness is his facade. Because he's not really tough. He's just a bully, and he's scared. Okay,
right? Exactly.
Well,
exactly.
There's
the crown above him. The 2 pillars.
They say it's an allegory for gold in the Federal Reserve, and then there's the people that were into more of discovering the darker stuff, where they say the red shoes had to do with the Red Shoe Club. So you have those 2 things to put in there too somewhere. If you can make sense of that, I don't know. But that's context I think about sometimes with that.
Sure.
You mentioned about cake earlier, right? So you know the cake of light, don't you?
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
What do you think the band Cake's kind of cake is about? Obviously, it's a witch's cake. right? That's what cake they're talking. It's a thelema cake. It's
I'm never
Crowley
there.
cake, right?
That was a joke.
But I mean, so is every lyric from the band Cake. So what's the deal? Keep going, David.
So the
all
deal
of a sudden,
is that you know, so you get to the end there, they do the song and dance, and then it's basically like they ask him if he promises them that he's going to make this movie, and he promises them, and that's so weird. And then you'll have the whole they're like,
him,
okay,
yeah.
they're like, yeah, you can bring out the cake now, and then they open up the veil, and then you got the 3 candles. So you have the 3 pillars, and it's a spiral.
Unveil your God, Babylon. Right.
It even almost looks like they kind of heil when they get to the top of the cake for a second. Like and so it's like my whole trip with this is like they're singing the Rainbow Road to Oz. And so like if you remember Chris, like live from the Logosphere, when you talk about, I forget what you call it, the Rainbow Bridge thing that he was on. And so so you have like between the pillars, the actual pathway that goes between, like you go up that little mountain or whatever. Like it seems like they're like just going over the top, like communicating this whole Masonic thing.
Doesn't Asgard have a rainbow bridge in Norse mythology?
Yes, I believe so. And so they kind of heil for a second there. I don't know if you caught that, but then
I caught that.
Yeah, you caught that. Yeah,
there it is.
And so it's like, you know, and so my feeling is like, am I fucking crazy? But they have the smoke later when they do it the second time, so they'll come in with it again. And like, I'm just like, am I crazy, or is this? When Mickey Mouse is saying, yeah, they're gonna make the goddamn movie, like, is that 9/11? Is that our full color Disney Wizard of Oz? Like,
well, isn't the Wiz with Michael Jackson? It's Richard Pryor at the Twin Towers, right?
That's right. And then there's an Elton John sync there. So Goodbye Yellow Brick Road and the Wiz is like a flawless, crazy sync somehow.
Look at the candles. The candles, aren't they the 3 pillars right there?
That's what I'm saying, dude. It's totally
or Sheen. There's this Turkish Wizard of Oz where they're singing this song. It's like Sheen, Sheen, Sheen. It's like they're talking about how wonderful it is to be alive. And
leave it to Zach to come in with a movie I haven't seen. This is great.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, the God. Turkish Wizard of Oz, but they're singing like this part that's like
Sheen.
So yeah, this is the Sheen song, and they're literally singing Sheen, Sheen, Sheen. Turkey is obviously in the news with their horrible earthquake this week, but this is a great version of Wizard of Oz.
Magic. Or that weird cloud.
That's a Turkish version?
Yeah. And so there's literally a song where they're singing Sheen, Sheen, Sheen. We're so lucky to be alive.
Wow, the Reset Oz.
Are they at the Bohemian Grove right there?
No, they're in Turkey. It's the Turkish Bohemian Grove. It's called Bazi's Place.
We're at the 2 hours deep. I wanted to show one more thing from Eddie's Synchronis page, because he does post, and thank God you do. We did show this, which was earlier funny, just like, what are these called? Which is just, you know, it's funny. I got to talk to my mom about chemtrails because of Mexico. And so thank you, Mexico. The Iranian underground base. But this was the one. Remember the giant blob, because there's the earthquake.
2 weeks before the earthquake.
There was this weird, I don't even want to say what this looks like.
The sky.
Well, you know. It's a
whispering eye.
And this is the kind of picture you can't share.
I think they call it the Scussy.
Isn't that your girlfriend Bessica? Isn't she a Pisces?
It's the Scussy. I think
it's the Scussy. Yeah, Scussy will do.
The sky Scussy. So anyway, do you think there's anything to this before we do any thoughts on the earthquake and the conscious clouds or clouds hiding UFOs by Lockheed? What do you think's going on?
Oh shit! Well, yeah.
Is there a balloon in there? Is there a USA balloon?
We're not going to talk about it this week, but Nope, the movie Nope, is so fully loaded. I can't believe that guy got snubbed at the Oscars. Supposedly, it's just they don't like horror movies. I don't even consider it a horror movie. It's so Kubrickian. And like all 3 of his films have been, I'm a fan, man. I think it's great. But yeah, it takes a lot from Jaws and like this loaded with Kabbalistic stuff all over the place. Like I love it.
I think he's racist. That's why I won't watch his stuff.
Well,
I don't know.
On that note, guys, let's make sure that you go to the Retro Station in Baltimore and you can get a copy of any video or cassette or DVD or CD or, you know, a lot of crazy specific media that you're like, oh, where's that one movie? Or maybe you don't even know what it is. If you're that guy who's like, hey, what's that movie in that one movie that one time with that one guy who did that one thing?
Who was that guy in that movie? You know, the one that came out last year.
Yeah,
With the
you
face
literally.
and the nose.
You just found your new best friend. This guy can actually help you find this stuff. And also, there's a lot of weird indie like documentaries and stuff like that made by a small niche group of people that studied something, and you have no idea where to get it or how to find it or anything. This is how you get this crazy articulate piece of turtle power, whatever it is. Man, look at this poster right here. Also, it's cool.
Wow.
It's like a documentary I found. It's on the whole origins and stuff of the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. So I mean.
Chris, one item you have to get. I'm sorry, because Disneyland is shutting down the
Look, I
Splash
posted
Mountain.
Crowley Bowie. Just click on it.
Wait,
It's 2
Splash
over, I'm
Mountain.
sorry.
We're gonna have to take a quick pivot for a second, talk about this. This is actually important. I forgot to bring it up, and it matters to me. Splash Mountain is being shut down, and this is iconoclasm.
Sound of the South. Sound of the South. You have to get that video, Chris. It's gonna be worth so much money. You got to get that. Splash Mountain is based on the Song of the South, you know that,
yeah,
right?
if you can get me the Song of the South on Laserdisc, I think it was released in Japan. I'm happy. That would be.
I used to have that. I have it. I sold it. I cannot believe I sold it.
Eddie,
I have that on vinyl. The soundtrack too.
Eddie's the kind of guy who I want to hear about how he had Type 4 metal cassette tapes in the 80s, but then I also don't want to hear about it because he got rid of them all. And I'm like, that doesn't help me. It's like he went fishing and he ate already. I don't know, but okay.
Man,
so
I had the Star Wars original.
Go 2 over real quick. Just go 2 over. I won't talk, but go 2 over.
No. Sorry, this one.
Right
this one.
Yeah, just go to that. That's cool.
Yeah. David Bowie often performed esoteric occult rituals within his performance. Most people would be clueless, but yeah, he was doing magic, blind force. At some point, yeah, we should talk about Fillmore and Bill Graham. Is that right? Billy Graham, who he refused to let David Bowie perform once he started getting into German, Austrian, Prussian occult magic and stuff like that. And he started dressing like socialists in the 30s and stuff. And he's like, you can't perform here anymore. So yeah, there's some definitely important stuff there.
Just a weird sync because yesterday
because we need Shazam on cassette tape.
I was watching The Moon, with The Moon. What was his, Sam? What's his actor's name? But that was directed by Bowie's son. What's his name? Duncan
I got a
Jones.
copy of that.
Yeah.
We got it all on UHF. Yeah. Sorry.
That's got a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason in it. Michael Richards.
Michael Richards. Yeah, he is.
Yeah. He's
how do you think he got off of that little rant he did? Because
I have a theory. I have a theory that it's actually his Juilliard method acting that led him to become Stanislavski method. He was possessed by the actual Kramer character. And because of that, that's all it was. It wasn't even his fault. He's actually if you've heard him off camera, he seems like a pretty decent human being. And as Kramer, he became Kramer. You ever
dude.
Will Smith became Muhammad Ali, and it was
it Zoltan? What was it?
One time Will Smith got on a plane. I remember Will Smith got on a plane after he made Muhammad Ali, and then there was a white captain, and then there was a black captain behind him, and Will Smith was like, "Why is the black captain behind the white cap?" Oh man, I gotta because that happens to you.
That's
if you become
why I'm careful.
Character.
I'm careful when I used to act because I would read scripts and I would know some of it was going to rub off on me. And there's tons of stuff that I've done that has rubbed off on me. Only thing that didn't was I played a skinhead one time in Homicide the movie. And I actually, in my brain, I played it as a racist black person who was mad at a white person when me and Clark Johnson got into it. Because that's the only way I could find in my body to play it.
How did Ryan Gosling ever get through this?
But you don't see it.
Right.
Man,
Ryan Gosling played a skinhead. I can't believe he did this, and he's still around.
That's a really good movie.
If you're hot enough, they'll give you a pass at anything, man.
He's a Jewish skinhead, and they wind up burning the synagogue scroll and all this stuff, and he starts to think about it, and he's reflecting on it, and then he's turmoil, got to come to terms with that and figure out his life.
Dude, there was this crazy movie called Neo-Ned, I think it is, about a black girl. Is that right? About a black girl who's possessed by Hitler. And she falls in love with the skinhead.
Yeah,
I find this to be.
I want to see that. I want to see it. Ben Foster, right?
And this is like the unofficial sequel to The Believer, but a bit more of a comedy spin to it. I like that
so bad. I want to see that so bad. Yeah. I have that on my list. As soon as it comes in, it's mine.
It's got a good group of people.
Ben Foster he's top 10 for me, and he's Jewish.
Yeah. Synchronous though. Also, make sure you go to Synchronous. Go to Eddie's page. Look at his videos. Watch all of the different kinds of synchronicities he puts up about the world going on. This one was kind of interesting. Just looking at why they chose this logo for the Red Star Regulus Alpha Leonis and the Cheyenne Mountain Space Force Station logo, right?
That was a lion. That was a lion originally.
Or a lady.
It was a lion. I'm positive.
Saying, yeah,
it was a giant lion. And
Yeah.
that is basically carved out of its body. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. But yeah, make sure you go to Synchronous. Sorry, Eddie, what are you saying?
Oh no, I was saying that the alignment is going to happen in 2026.
Oh, right.
Just while I'm still banned from my group in Facebook, I'm not going to be back until the 17th. Because I made a mistake of making fun of trans people. So
I gotta work on that.
So
Nothing Forever got canceled too with
now.
Zoltan Kackler is Michael Richards' character. It's a shame.
Yeah, you and Eckhart totally just like stepping out. But make sure you go to thesyncbook.com and you go to, I just went so fast you couldn't see it, but go to the Syncflix right here, or you can go to the videos up here at the top and you can click on Syncflix to see David's Synchronicity video.
I'll shut up for the rest of the thing. I promise, unless I'm talked to. Who made my video? Who made my video for a friend of the devil? Was that you, Dave? Who edited that?
Friend of the devil? What was that? I don't.
When I did the Friend of the Devil, it was the SyncBook podcast I did. It was number 70, and there was an intro. I have it.
William John probably on all his recording.
Oh my God, he just edited like this video. It was Charles Manson talking at the beginning about how he rolls the nickels and makes deals the cards and all this stuff. And I was working for my brother's store at the time, and I had got in the car to go somewhere the next day after he sent it to me. And there was a roll of nickels on the floor because I did a comic book show that weekend.
Yeah, that could have been me. I did a number of the shows. You're talking about the song at the beginning before you did it, and
it was a video, like a promo for it.
Oh, a promo.
But I love that.
I don't know about that.
Whoever put that together must have known me very well. It was very beautiful. I love it.
Cool.
Nice. Awesome. But yeah, so make sure you go to thesyncbook.com, go to the Syncflix, and David, you got a new video out here, or this is the one that you set up recently and has your original music.
The one I did with my friend, actually. So like there's songs in this that actually like contributed all the samples for. So all the samples in both of these albums were mine, and then my friend Amelia, it's her music. And so we just there's a song actually that my rabbi wrote called Earthquake, and she just did a musical interpretation of what with his lyrical content, and then I added sound effects to I made it kind of just about the 89 earthquake is what it was kind of became specific, but it's also relating to the synchronicity of the Bay Bridge breaking while the Battle of the Bay was happening or whatever. But that's not so related to this. That's just that's just a recent thing. But yeah, there's these two albums, Diana's Mirror and Antediluvian Spring. And so they're made to fit with the film Men to it's measured, so and it's a combination of spontaneity or I guess what you'd call magic and intention as well. So it's one takes off where the other one leaves off, and it actually works. So yeah. And then beyond that, I feel like I want to recommend a sync film I've been focused on the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Lana Del Rey's Norman fucking Rockwell, mainly because of another talk that I've been doing on Always Record with Jason Barrera that Zach was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it should be in the center if you keep scrolling down here. I don't know if was it that far back? My God, time flies. There it is. This is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Norman fucking Rockwell. That's a really good pairing. They'll be the first part of the film will play, and as soon as it cuts to from the intro, then the album starts, and it does a whole thing. All the sound from the film is actually raised in between all the vocals throughout, so it has a pretty crazy effect. I
think we watched that when I was out there, didn't we?
We may have, yeah. I showed this one at Digital Debris in LA, and there was one point where some people walked in and it's the Playboy sequence in this, and they didn't realize. So Michael Allen, who runs the place, he told me afterwards that these people were walking out, and he overheard them say, I don't know what the big deal is. They're just watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in there. And they were there for like the full length of the song for when they go to the Playboy Mansion. And I was like, holy shit, they stood there, watched it, and didn't even realize it was a sync. It stoked me out.
We're going to have to do a whole deep dive again into Wizard of Oz. I mean, David, let's set up a time and we can get it. We'll like put some notes together to remember to go over things. If there's anyone else you want to make specifically sure is there, we'll keep it small and we'll do like the Wiz and everything in between. My God. We didn't even bring up Michael Jackson.
Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is so good.
Oh.
The sync film that David did with the Wiz and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, the Elton John record. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's like it's beautiful. And they're at the they're dancing around at the World Trade Center. And it's like so heavy.
How far
it'll make you cry.
It's like it's the way it repeats with that scene. So like the album when the first time, because it only makes 2 rounds, I believe. And so the second round when it does the changeover, it's like it's Love Lies Bleeding in My Hand. Funeral for a Friend is the first song on the album. So the way that aligns with the World Trade Center scene,
and they're doing this dance that goes with it. That's just like so.
Oh, dude, they're at they have the piano. Oh my God, it's ridiculous.
There's the Ace of Base one. Where's the one that's how far up do I have to go to find it?
Science theater thing you guys do, where you guys like riff on stuff.
We didn't always record that was like that. We did that with Head.
Yeah, that's right. That was good. Sync Science Theater 3000.
Yeah, I want to do one of those. That's the only thing I care to definitely do.
I might go right by it. So I'm sorry, but if you guys
I'm looking. It's the Wiz and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. You'll see the image for them. I got like 200 videos here. So
can we have a little bit of Zardoz in there too? There's another Oz,
I don't think there's a Zardoz one.
Yeah,
I mean there is. I'm sure there is, but
it's probably overrated. Michael Jackson's Invincible. Actually, I found Michael Jackson's Invincible syncs 3 times to Star Wars Episode 1, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
we're getting there because I think that's one you do like you redid fairly recently.
There it is. It says tell me, Great Seal.
There you go. Great.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Elton John on top of the Wiz twice.
It's like halfway in.
Mm-hmm.
God,
maybe a little past.
Elton John officially retired this year, right? That's it. He's gone. He's no more on stage.
Yeah, he said he's in one last tour, and that's it.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes after he gets his next injections. Did I miss anybody? Zach, do you have a website to share?
People can check out the pattern recognition music on the same sync book page at the very, very bottom of the Sync Flicks. It's right. It's at the very, very bottom of the sync book, same section. That's a fun one. Good one to check out.
He's talking about my page.
Yeah, go to David's same page, and it's just all the way very bottom. It is Will Morgan and I's band.
Bottom, huh?
Yeah, see in the middle there, it says LA to Oz.
Yeah, so that's Will and I's album. I did the artwork there. You've got John Lennon, who's really Luke Skywalker, and on that version of the Sgt. Pepper's, he's holding a French horn, but much the same way. But yeah, this is Mario Brothers. You see the towers get destroyed. It's wild. David made the film. We made the album, and we can unequivocally say that we didn't make the album so that it would work with both the Mario Brothers and the Wizard playing simultaneously. I can.
Sounds legit. I got to get your help to compress the music properly on my next thing. You saw that.
Hey, Zach, I thought you were coming out with some new music here.
Yeah, we are. We're deep in the final process of
Will. I heard you are.
Yeah. Will and I are going to be finishing with. I'm hoping a few months. It's the last leg of the thing is sometimes the hardest, especially with something that has been being worked on for 3-4 years and is in disparate places of the hard drive. And we're working on these sessions late at night in different states, so it's just kind of figuring out which mixes we want to use.
Did I tell you about the Tascam? So some guy just said he's going to give me. I was going to try to buy a Yamaha MTI-8.
What's the latest on it? You got it?
So the dude's giving me it for like 70, which is like pretty awesome.
Because
whether
that's
it's
a pretty decent price.
If it's broken or not, it's broken basically, and I can replace the belt, and that's probably it. But the thing is, I was looking at this other one, which is the Tascam 488. And the dude, I ended up saying, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be able to take care of it right now or deal with it. It's like, all right, well, you just want it. So he's just going to give it to me for free. So I'm getting that tomorrow. So now I've got a Tascam 488 and the MTI 8XI. So I have like the state of the art cassette recorders from right when they stopped cassettes. So good for me. But like,
the other thing to look at is 4-tracks. Because even though like you'd think like an 8-track is better, a 4-track actually uses a bigger part of the tape.
Right.
So just as far as signal to noise goes, some of the best ones are the ones that are like super simple. So you'll see a lot of people that use them with modular and synthesizers using like the really basic Tascam Porta Studio MK4. That's the 4-track version. That's like there's a mid and a high EQ, not even. I think it's just volume and pan.
Yeah, I'm all about using the 4-track, but I also like noise.
There's a really good video I posted. It was DJ Quick from NWA, and he was explaining the difference between a cassette tape and a record and a CD. And he was explaining how when you record on magnetic tape, and it was very esoteric the way he was putting it, though I don't know if that was intentional.
Well, yeah, it's harmonic. There's more there's even harmonic stuff.
The room energy, and all these people were agreeing that were like, musicians. You capture the room energy on a tape, and it was weird.
Literally, you are getting the sound pressure level, the energy and vibration of. The
it reminds me of soy ink paintbrush strokes, because you're just the magnet is sweeping over this Zen garden of iron oxide, and
totally
so you're getting it this like physical grain that's being created, which is kind of interesting.
Little wabi sabi.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
There's a weird story he told on one of his interviews where he was talking about this studio in Texas where everybody does their albums, that they have this big crystal when you walk in. And the reason they had the big crystal was because when Karen Carpenter passed away, she had recorded in there all the time. And the people that had headphones on, that were the engineers, kept hearing her spirit talk. So the psychic suggested that they get this big crystal and hang it up to get her to put her energy in there and not in the headphones. And then he said years later, after Tupac passed away, who recorded in there, these engineers who were like old white dudes that didn't listen to hip hop, but they knew Tupac's voice from the movies and everything because he was famous, they would hear Tupac's voice, and a couple of them wound up quitting.
Wow.
It's haunted.
Over that, not just because, right?
It was actually the lyrics. They were a little controversial for that guy's taste.
Oh my God. Well, on that note, guys, we're gonna have to come back and do that again. I want to talk some more, and thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time. But also, now I have to look into Texas occult enchanted studios. Thanks for that. All right, bye. Thanks.
Stick a Bjork in me.